Hey, good afternoon, everybody. It's 6 minutes past the hour of 3 o'clock on Super Talk 99.7. This is The Drive. We'll be here from now until, well, right around 7 o'clock when we hand it off to Mark Levin. And the whole idea of The Drive is that we're going to get you home safely, during your drive home. And then we're going to give you some information while you're in the car so that, when you arrive at home, you're completely up to speed on the events of the day. We'll give you some opinion. We'll give you some news, and maybe along the way, a little chuckle or two. Because you know what, you got to have a palate cleanser now and then. It's a heavy world we live in right now. Things going on around the world, and things. This horrible situation in Maine, which we'll get into in the 4 o'clock hour. And of course, here at home, we are still fighting a major crime problem. And I had a very interesting conversation today with a listener who provided an insight and provided me with information about things that I had not considered as to why crime might be such a problem in our area. And continues, we're talking about violent crime seems to be on the uptick in our area, and there's a lot of good reasons for that, and we're going to try to address those problems. I mean, the one thing that I don't ever want to do is I don't ever want to be in a position of just wringing my hands and saying, "Oh, isn't this horrible? Isn't this horrible?" But the idea should be to not only point out that there's a problem, but then try to seek out why that problem exists, and then what can be done to solve the problem. And I think we're going to make some headway on that a little bit later, again in the 4 o'clock hour. Right now, I want to start out with what's happening in Israel. The briefings today. Ongoing, and the United States is apparently asking for a pause of military action of Israel going into Gaza, saying, hold on a minute, and that has apparently to do, we are told, with the fact that the United States wants to shore up the defenses around U.S. troops. Not in Israel, but in the region. I mean, we've got a lot of military people in the region, and it is expected that when Israel goes into Gaza in a significant way, that a lot of these Iran-backed militants will strike out at U.S. Facilities in the region. In fact, they already have done that on a couple of occasions. We learned today that a number of people were indeed injured in some of these drone attacks that have gone against our military installations. So the United States has said to Israel, yeah, we know you got a war going on, but hold on, because we need to make sure that our people are protected. My immediate question is, why in the world weren't they already protected? The threat was always there. Why is it that we didn't have protection for our troops? I mean, this is okay. Now, Israel's got its hands full trying to respond to the Hamas attack of October 7th. But the United States has been in the region for a long time, and significantly so. I mean, we have people operating in Syria. We have people operating in Iraq. We have, military facilities all throughout that region in Saudi Arabia. How is it that we did not think it was important to protect them from what would be a predictable response by the Iran-backed militants in the region? Hamas, Hezbollah, others. I don't know. Here's the story. Israel has agreed to delay an expected invasion of Gaza for now, so that the United States can rush missile defense systems to the region to protect U.S. troops. U.S. officials have so far persuaded Israel to hold off until air defense systems can be placed in the region, and that may happen by tomorrow, by late this week. Israel also taking into account in its planning the effort to supply humanitarian aid inside Gaza, as well as diplomatic efforts to free the hostages held by Hamas. Threats to the U.S. troops were of paramount concern, it said. Washington was scrambling. Why are we scrambling? Why in the world wasn't this foreseeable? To deploy nearly a dozen air defense systems for its troops serving, and this is where we have people. We forget about this. We have people in Iraq. We have people in Jordan. We have people in Kuwait. We have people in Saudi Arabia. We have people operating in Syria and we have people operating in United Arab Emirates. The U.S. military and other officials believe their forces will be targeted by militant groups once Israel launches its ground invasion of the Hamas-ruled Palestinian territory. Reuters reported on Monday that Washington advised Israel to hold off on a ground assault and is keeping Qatar, a broker with the Palestinian militants, apprised of those talks as they try to free more hostages and prepare for a possible wider regional war. It was reported last week that the Pentagon planned to send 2 Iron Dome missile defense systems to Israel to help defend itself against the high number of inbound missiles, and a terminal high-altitude area defense called a THAAD system, and additional Patriot air defense missile systems to the Middle East, and that ostensibly would be to protect U.S. troops. But U.S. troops have already been attacked, and the president said, well, if you attack any of our troops, we will respond. That question came up today in the White House briefing room, and again, it would seem that, they have been attacked. The president said, if they are attacked, we will respond. So I think Jackie Henrick asked the right question and was sort of, slapped down by Admiral John Kirby for asking such a question. But I think it's the right question to ask.
John, the president said that if Iran or its proxies attacked U.S. troops, that we would respond. So what is he waiting for exactly?
He did say that.
Where's the response?
He said that. And he said that we will...
Repeating the warning is the response?
Jackie, come on now.
It's not his question.
I'm not going to telegraph punches here from the podium. We have responded and retaliated in the past, quite aggressively, in fact, back in March. And as the president said, we will not hesitate to protect our troops and our facilities, but we're going to do it at a time of our choosing and a manner of our choosing. And the decision to do it, if we do it, is his as commander-in-chief and his alone.
Well,
John, the president said...
I will tell you that I don't like that answer because what it says to me is you've got a situation where we were attacked and we had people that were injured, not severely, it seems. I guess that the explosions may have caused what is known as TBI, which is a temporary brain injury. And, this is sort of like, okay, you were just in the vicinity of a pretty big explosion, so you had sort of a concussion of sorts. And so, you need a little time off to get the cobwebs cleared out. I can understand that for sure. The understanding is that a lot of the people who have had these temporary brain injuries have had a few days off and are back already in their positions. So none of the injuries were very serious, certainly not bodily injuries, but more like concussion injuries. But still, nonetheless, they were injured. And then so we sit on our hands, and once again, it makes us look like, we are not, we're a paper tiger. That if you do this, then we're going to do that. And then we don't do that. It's the same thing that happened in Afghanistan that made us look weak and feckless before the entire world. And in fact, if you think about it, it was that lack of a reaction in Afghanistan, the lack of a good plan or giving the military officials at least enough time to have a decent plan to get out of Afghanistan safely, that caused a problem. And we got kicked around by the Taliban on the way out the door. And Americans lost their lives as a result of that. And what was the response? None. And you know what happens when you don't have a response, when you get kicked around? People figure out, well, we can kick the United States around a little bit. It was I would say the situation in Afghanistan that emboldened Vladimir Putin to go into Ukraine. Well, this guy doesn't want to have any conflict. He's not up for a fight. I'll just do what I think I can do. If the Taliban can kick around the United States, then the Russians certainly can. And he goes into Ukraine. It's like a green light. Hey, the U.S. is not going to do anything. They don't want to have any fights. They're not up for it. That's why China has been so emboldened with regard to Taiwan. It's why why the folks in Iran have looked and said, well, they just gave us $6 billion. They're not wanting to fight. They don't look like they're up for a scuffle. They're trying to make peace and give us $6 billion. I guess we'll look at that as a green light to do what we need to do in Israel. I mean, weakness on display, not only by this president in his daily demeanor, where he looks like, somebody's doddering old granddad. All he does nowadays is tell old stories and wander around aimlessly. Not somebody who inspires a great deal of respect or fear on the world stage. And then, our troops get attacked and we do nothing. It just adds to the narrative that the United States is not what it used to be. And many of the problems that we have here on the world stage at this moment can be directly attributed to this vacuum that exists at the White House. Nobody is in charge. Nobody seems to have a real grip on what's going on. The other thing going on in the Middle East right now is that we have actually a lot of Americans who were in Gaza who want to get out. And they have moved down to the southern part of Gaza, which is near what's something called the Rafah Gate. And they're trying to get out, but they can't get out. And apparently now the word comes that Egypt would be willing to help us, but you got to understand that there are some limitations in play here. Here's how Matt Miller at the State Department explained it.
If you've ever been to Rafah Crossing, or if you know what it looks like, there is an Egyptian side that is controlled by Egyptian immigration authorities, and then there is a Gaza side that has been controlled by immigration authorities from Hamas. And in the middle, there is a no man's land. And so the Egyptian authorities are ready to process American citizens and other foreign nationals if they make it through the Gaza side of the border, through the no man's land to them. But the problem has been up until now, and it's the problem that we've been trying to unlock, is that at times on the Gaza side of the border, there has been no one there from Hamas to open the gates and process people and let them through. And at other times, there have been actually armed Hamas militants standing there, not even letting people approach the gate.
Well, I haven't been to the Rafah Gate, but I've been to the Ares Gate. And it's very much the same thing. On the Israeli side, you have one set of gates that you go through, and then there is a no man's land, and you have to wander across, I'd say maybe 100 yards, where then you meet the Palestinian officials, and they look over your credentials and decide whether you can come in or not. And so there is that no man's land. It's about 100 yards, probably. But are you kidding me? Really? We have American citizens who are in danger, and the only thing that is stopping us is somebody with a pair of bolt cutters to wander. Okay, let's go over that 100 yards and open up the gate and let Americans out. Is that what it takes? I mean, honestly, again, feckless. A real leader would have already come up with some plan to get those gates open and to start processing Americans out. It's ridiculous, is what it is. And the Biden administration, instead of talking about the issues of war, which is what they ought to be, they're still talking about the potential for a two-state process.
The president's talking more about humanitarian pause and reviving the Israeli-Palestinian peace process. What's prompting this tone shift?
So, two thoughts here, Steve. For one, the president has never backed away or never stopped affirming the need for a two-state solution. Since coming into office, we've been working on that very hard. And I know it's a lofty goal, and it's taken a lot of people a long time to try to get there, and we haven't gotten there. But he's not stopped working towards that goal, and he still believes, as he said yesterday, that when this conflict is over, that still has to be the goal we're driving to, a state for Palestinians that they can live in peace and security and justice.
Well, let's get the thing cleaned up first, okay? Let Israel do what Israel needs to do to dismantle Hamas. There's no need to be talking about a two-state process until that happens, until Hamas is eradicated from the Gaza Strip. 21 minutes now past the hour. How you faring in this rough and tumble market? The experts at Beacon Capital Management understand that these are scary times. I mean, you look at the markets, and some days they're up and some days they're down, and it's a worrisome thing. Beacon Capital Management has a plan to assess where you are and then help you make some mid-course corrections so that you have a good pathway to retirement. Wouldn't it be great to have peace of mind that you're on that right path? Beacon can provide you that reassurance, and it starts with a simple phone call to this number, 615-488-9303. The experts at Beacon will ask you some questions, and then they will give you their best recommendations. You have nothing to lose in all of this except for the worry that you might now have. Get started today by calling 615-488-9303. At the end of the process, you'll be able to rest more easy, knowing that you have a plan that meets your retirement goals. Replace the worry with confidence that you are on the right path. Here's the number again, 615-488-9303. The experts at Beacon stand ready to take your stress away. Learn more at askbeaconnow.com.
Hey everybody, Dan Mattis with Nashville's Morning News on WTN. I'm here at the Nashville Rescue Mission doing the interviews that I look forward to doing every single year. These are incredible stories of people who have had amazing recoveries. Thanks to this amazing facility, they are able to get clean and lead a more productive life. The date of our annual radiothon is going to be Monday, November 20th. Listen in and please donate. You can get more information at 99.7 WTN, including a link to the website for Nashville's Rescue Mission.
The White House reacting to the mass shooting in Maine as that manhunt continues. And Representative Gary Palmer of Alabama joins WTN with an update on the now active House of Representatives. We'll have those stories at 3:30 on Super Talk, 99.7 WTN.
Hello, Mac Maury. Good to see you there in the newsroom today.
Hello,
in the
hello.
control room. And pushing the blinky buttons is Chris Weber, as always.
Yes.
Yeah, that's right. He's there, holding the ship of state together, and bringing information to me that I need to make a little correction here. And we're always willing to make a correction when we are pointed out to be wrong, and apparently we were. I said TBI stood for a temporary brain injury, and apparently the more correct term, in fact, the correct term is a traumatic brain injury.
Yes.
So, which sounds a lot more serious than a temporary brain injury, and I will admit that. And I had a temporary brain injury because I didn't know that, I guess. I somehow had a brain fart. Anyway, no, glad to have that correction, and thank you so much. And don't ever hesitate on the super text line. I'm one man, and I'm covering a lot of ground every day. And if you know that I have somehow stepped in it, this happened a lot in Washington when I worked in Washington. In Washington, you have to. Well, there's an old joke about people who get into this business, and what is your job today? And there was a great cartoon that I saw one time, and I had it for the longest time, and I've lost it somewhere. It was how a reporter starts his day, and it was a reporter with a dart, and before him was this gigantic board that said, "Today I am an expert in," and there were all these categories like a Jeopardy board, right? And because this is what you do when you are trying to explain to people what's going on in the world. You may not be an expert in these kind of things, but you have to very quickly become, like a five fact expert,
Like a Cliff Notes expert.
Yeah, so you have to pick up and learn things very quickly, and sometimes that process fails you. And in Washington, you had to really know your stuff, because in Washington there is an expert in everything out there in your audience. I mean, any topic you can imagine, there's some doctorate of so-and-so or some government official who this is their life and they know more about it than anything in the world. And you really had to get your information correct, because those people would pop up immediately and tell you what a bonehead you were. And we don't want to be boneheads. So, thank you for that. I never, ever, never don't appreciate that. Because, what our goal here every day here is to get the best information we can across. And, I've learned a lot over the years, but I don't know it all. There's some things that I don't know. And then there's some things that I don't know that I don't know.
Wow.
And those are the ones that are most dangerous.
That's true, yeah.
That's true. So thank you for that. Greatly appreciate it. Listen, coming up in the rest of the show, in a few moments, we'll give you some 2024 numbers that I think you'll like. Our market report, we'll get into the Maine massacre and all that has happened there, an absolutely preventable crime, and it's sad that it wasn't prevented, and we'll talk about that a little bit. And again, we're going to talk about this. I'm really looking forward to this conversation, because I learned a lot today from one of our listeners. And when I keep talking about how there is crime, and crime is on the uptick here in Middle Tennessee, and why is it that we have people like John Drake Jr., who have 59 different encounters with police, and some of them are violent, and he's still out on the streets? I got an answer to some of those questions today, and it's not at all what I expected it to be. So we'll get into that in the 4 o'clock hour as well. Right now, 30 minutes past the hour of 3 o'clock on Super Talk.
3:30, I'm Mac Maury with your top stories. Right now, sunny, 81 degrees on Music Row. Traffic and a weather forecast headed your way, 5 minutes. Some reaction today from the White House on another one of the hundreds of mass shootings in the United States this year. Andy Field with details.
President Biden has tried and failed to convince House and Senate Republicans to pass tougher gun regulations or to ban assault-style weapons. He hopes that'll change.
The House has a new speaker who he said he's ready to get to work and to find common ground. Now is the time.
White House Press Secretary Karine Jean-Pierre saying the Congress can no longer do nothing after each mass shooting.
And the death toll in Maine, 18 now, with 13 injured. Authorities still searching for the man they say did it, 40-year-old Robert Card, a firearms instructor with military history. And in the nation's capital, the House has a speaker, and that means they can actually discuss and hopefully sign off some appropriations bills to avoid a full-on government shutdown by November 17th. Alabama Representative Gary Palmer joined WTN's The Matt Murphy Show and discussed why he put his name in the race, and it wasn't necessarily to win.
I kept thinking when we kept having these conference meetings and people weren't listening to anything, really. It was, and there were some things that I felt like needed to be said at the conference when they could listen. So I put my name in the hat so that I would be able to be a part of that 2-hour candidate forum and talk about how we fixed our appropriations process and how we put together an agenda that the American people will believe in.
And Palmer said that they voted on 18 amendments today, the same number of votes that were had for Speaker. That's the latest news. Weather and traffic next. I'm Mac Maury, WTN News.
37 minutes past the hour of 3 o'clock. You're listening to The Drive. Brian Wilson in the chair. We're so glad that you're with us on this Thursday, October 26th. Beautiful day. Another beautiful fall day. Man, we just have got a nice run going here. But I hear it's about to rapidly change.
Yes, indeed.
Yeah, that's right. Temperatures could be in the upper 20s by next week. Overnight temperatures.
I kind of like it. I got to say, I know I'm in the minority with that.
Yeah, you are in the minority with that for sure. But no. Let's do a little what I call 2024 update, because there's some phenomenally good news, I think, developing for Republicans about how the 2024 election might come out. Again, it's very early, and I always want to put in the warnings that these polls are just a snapshot in time, and they can change. They're not a prediction of what will happen, but certainly where we are at the moment. And at the moment, it's going very well for Donald Trump and not so well for Joe Biden. Let me see if I can get you some of these numbers here so you can get a sense of what I'm talking about. One of the things that you look at is an approval rating for a president. How many people approve of the job he's doing and how many people disapprove of the job he's doing. The gold standard in polling really has always been, I think, the Gallup organization. And Biden's approval rating is 37%. That's right, but just a little more than a third of Americans approve of the job he's doing. And 59% disapprove. That he means he's underwater in his approval-disapproval by 22 points. Rasmussen has him underwater by 11. The Economist has him underwater by 15. None of those numbers are good. But I always look at the Gallup poll. I mean, it's not always right, but it has a pretty good reputation for getting a lot of things right. Let's see. In the state of Tennessee, by the way, we have a new poll out that says that Trump leads Biden 2-1. That's not surprising because Republicans outnumber Democrats about 2-1 in the state of Tennessee. 61-31 is where we are on that. So, here in Tennessee, no surprises. It is a Republican state, and the presumed Republican nominee is doing quite well. Here's a story from Breitbart. Former President Donald Trump is leading Joe Biden in the battleground states. Overall, the survey found Biden taking a slight edge in a two-man national race, Trump 48 to 46%, leading Trump 48 to 46. However, Trump has a clear advantage over Biden in the key swing states. Man, this is, again, we keep hearing this time and time and time again, all these polls that are coming out that look at the swing states, and he's doing very well. Trump leads, let's see, here we go. I'm trying to, and overall, if you take Arizona, Georgia, Nevada, Michigan, Pennsylvania, and Wisconsin, and you average them together, Trump leads 49 to Biden's 43. So he leads by, about 6 points. That's really quite something when you look at the numbers. Trump's advantage in other polls swing state polls show him doing better. Reuters has him up by 6 also. So, I mean, those numbers are really very encouraging when you look at them, and it says, look, you have to play the electoral math here. And we know that there are some states that are always going to be battleground states. These are purple states. Sometimes they go to the left, and sometimes they go to the right. Right now, they seem to be swinging to the right. And not surprisingly, really, when you look at the economy and the current president's approval rating. James Carville has never been one to hesitate to express himself in a very forward way. Democratic strategist James Carville said in an interview with the Washington Post that it is ludicrous to avoid debating President Biden's viability for a second term. Now, we do have a mention of a guy by the name of Dean Phillips, a Democrat from Minnesota. He's a member of the House, who's expected to announce his plan to challenge Biden in New Hampshire on Friday. That's tomorrow. According to the Post, Phillips has argued that the Democrat Party should offer an alternative to Biden as his poll numbers remain very low. So it begins. The idea that this should not be aired out and should not be discussed in hushed tones and should be discussed in hushed tones is ludicrous, says Carville. This needs to be discussed. Concerns about Biden's age and what the Post called historically alarming polling with fellow Democrats have dominated Washington circles. Now, this is the party conversation. This is what they say when they're whispering over drinks. But Biden has thus far not faced serious opposition to being nominated for a second time. Robert F. Kennedy recently dropped out as a bid for the Democrat nomination and announced he would run as an independent. Other Democrat strategists said that a challenge from Phillips was unlikely to affect the president's path to securing the nomination. Political director and senior advisor to Senator Elizabeth Warren's presidential campaign, Rebecca Piercy, when she was running for president, told the outlet that the Biden-Harris campaign did not need to worry about Phillips. We all know how old Biden is. I don't think a 2.5-term congressman who has probably not actually known outside his district is the challenge Biden needs in order to close this nomination. I agree. Carville, the New York Times in September, said that it was clear voters did not want Biden to run for re-elections. The voters don't want this, and in a poll after poll after poll, he said worrying these fears could lower voter turnout. You can't look at what you look at and not for some reason feel apprehension here. Well, he's right. He in an interview he did some time back with CNN, we played it for you. Carville said Biden's numbers are troubling. The CNN poll at that time found that 49% of those surveyed flagged Biden's age as their biggest concern. Another 7% said it was his mental sharpness. 7% said it was his health. And another 7% said that it was Biden's ability to do the job that was a cause for concern. None of those things are good. That's 49 and 7, that's 56. Add another 7, that's 63. Add another, that's 70%. I mean, I'm telling you, 70% of Democrats say that he should not run again, and have they have varying reasons, but they all are sort of similar to it. He's not sharp. He doesn't have what it takes to do the job. It's his age. 70%. Well, you know what? That's of Democrats. So, I keep saying about Joe Biden that his support among Democrats is a mile wide, but about an inch deep. In other words, if it comes down to Trump or Biden, the hardcore Democrat is going to go with Biden. Okay? But that doesn't mean that they wouldn't be interested in looking at another candidate would one with, had some kind of credentials actually emerge. I don't think this congressman out of Minnesota is the guy. He's largely unknown, but there are people out there. And I guess, Gavin Newsom is the one that comes to mind most often. Gavin Newsom, where was he yesterday? He was in China. What does Gavin Newsom lack if he were to want to run for president? Foreign policy experience, right? So here he is. He's over there, in China, posing for the cameras, driving a Chinese electric vehicle, giving him a good, what you call a good photo op that will get played. And is he the guy? He's making all the moves, but he hasn't made the move that really matters, which is putting his hat in the ring. What's he waiting for? Now, I'll say it again. I don't think Joe Biden will be ultimately the Democrat nominee. Maybe it happens at the convention. Maybe it happens before the convention. Maybe it happens if there is a situation where Biden really stumbles. And when I say stumbles, it could be, a physical stumble. If he were to have another face plant like he had at the Air Force Academy, that would be bad. Maybe it is just an egregious and unforgivable error when he's in front of the cameras. Whatever it is, so far people are willing to just sort of, I think he's got good people around him, so I'm not too worried. That's the general response of Democrats. But, I mean, honestly, if you have a president who continues to make the kinds of mistake that he's made on the world stage, how long can you continue to say there's not a problem? There are very few Democrats who will come out and do what James Carville has done here. But he's never been shy about expressing his opinions. And I'll have to say, more times than not, I think he's proven correct, that he has the right take on things. He's correct here. Joe Biden is not up to the task. And I think it's just a matter of time until an event happens or something, some mistake that just can't be overlooked happens. I'm worried a great deal right now about this man's mental acuity, his cognitive ability, and his inability to do anything more. I mean, what he does now is he just tells old stories. Well, as my granddad said, or as my papa told me. I mean, there's hardly ever an appearance where he's not starting out with, one of those stories. Yeah, and what's really remarkable about him is that some of these stories can be checked out. And about half of them turn out, maybe more than half, turn out to be absolutely not true. He's either lying or his memory has faded and has twisted these stories so that he tells them in a way that are no longer true. I don't know what it is, but time after time and time after time, that's been proven to be the case. There's one out there now where he's talking about stuff that, no indication at all. It was about a Purple Heart that he got it was either when he was a senator or when he was a vice president in Obama that he got for one of his family members who had been denied the Purple Heart that he had earned, and he went to the mat and got it. And according to all the research that's been done, the story doesn't add up. It is, and was it when he was vice president? Was it when he was a senator? We don't know. And was it even true? A lot of people have looked into it and said it's not true. How long can you continue to put your blinders on as Democrats and see this? So, I don't know who's going to emerge. I guess it's Gavin Newsom if I had to make a bet, but he hasn't moved yet. 50 minutes now, past the hour of 3 o'clock on Super Talk. Genesis Diamonds, one of the things I love about that company is they're always bringing in new and fresh jewelry and diamonds. You're never going to see the same old choices at Genesis. With diamonds, they're always bringing in fresh cut stones straight from the world's best diamond cutters. Every size you can imagine, including the larger rare diamonds, 3, 5, even 10 carats. Wow. Nobody has a diamond selection that can come anywhere close. And with designer jewelry, Genesis has partnered with all the top designers from New York and Los Angeles, and they are on the cutting edge when it comes to stuff that's in style. What's hot, what's new, what's different. The stuff you see in Genesis you will not find in other stores, guaranteed. So it's a constantly moving, constantly changing inventory, always new selections. It's another reason why Genesis dominates the jewelry scene and why people drive for hours to be able to shop at this amazing store. They've got it all, huge selections, uncompromising quality, unbeatable ironclad warranties, and white glove customer service. And by the way, I have been a customer. I can attest to all of those things. Genesis Diamonds and luxury pre-owned Rolexes. New Rolexes have just come in. Genesis is the official jeweler of the Tennessee Titans. 2 locations, Green Hills and Cool Springs.
A Roth IRA versus a traditional IRA. Which one should we do? A lot of people struggle over this particular decision. And I'll just give you a couple tools to figure out what might be better for you. Think about it this way. Let's say if I had $1,000 that I was thinking about investing, that was income, $1,000 of income. With an IRA, let's say that you're in a 30% tax bracket. Let's say there is such a thing. And you want to put this money in an IRA. You're going to save $300 in taxes. Now, if you go post-tax with like a Roth IRA, this is how much goes into the Roth IRA. Now, let's say that later on down the road, we have this money and it didn't grow at all, just to keep the math really simple. And let's say that at some point in the future, you're in a lower tax bracket, because the way our tax system works is that your first income is taxed at a really low rate, and then you get up into higher rates, 10%, 12%, 22%, and so on and so forth. It gets higher. If you're earning income and you're at that particular tax rate up there, you might want to avoid that tax rate right now and take the income at a later point in time when you're in a lower average tax rate. Now let's say that you're in a 10% bracket down here when you pull the money. How much are you going to pay in taxes? 10% of $1,000 is $100. How much do you get to spend? $900. Well, even though I didn't have growth, I had growth because of the difference between my tax rate here and here. And that's the idea. That's one of the things that we look at. We look at Social Security taxation, income taxation, and a lot of factors that might drive you in a higher or lower brackets in the future. If you want to learn more about our approach to investing and financial planning, go to paulwinkler.com and set up a free 15-minute phone call, or call 615-851-1950.
"18 dead in Maine after a mass shooting last night, with a manhunt still active to find the person of interest in that shooting. An Israel-Hamas war update and mental health funding in Tennessee. Those stories and more coming up at 4. Super Talk 99.7 WTN.
It is 56 minutes past the hour. Dow Jones Industrial Average took a big hit today, 251 points in the red. S&P is down about 50 points, and the NASDAQ is down 225. This all seems to be some kind of reaction to the big GDP numbers, which sound good on their first blush look, but as John Maxson over at Beacon Capital Management is about to explain, it looks good, but it really has a sort of a downside as well. Good afternoon, John.
Yeah, Brian. Sure enough, we got a great GDP report, and you would think that would be good news. And the report today indicated that The last 3 months, the economy has grown at the fastest pace in the last 2 years. This advanced estimate was 4.5%. Now, when you compare that to last quarter of 2.5%, that looks really good on the surface, but it indicates a strong consumer. And the concern continues to be about a slowdown. In fact, several economists came out today and indicated they believe this is a high watermark for the economy before a really tight credit market begins to take hold. And we're seeing that in some of the earnings reports. So that's what's causing that. And we're going to get some advanced look tomorrow on personal income. So that's something to pay attention to tomorrow morning.
All right. Thank you very much, John. Learn more about all the things they can do for you over at Beacon Capital Management by going to their website, askbeaconnow.com. It is 58 minutes past the hour of 3 o'clock. I want to tell you about the Wellness Institute of Nashville. Dr. Kevin Mitchell is my doctor. He could be your doctor as well. He's a national known leader in this area known as non-surgical spinal decompression. It's a therapy that can do wonders if you have pain in your back. Do you have a tingling or a numbness or a weakening or back pain? Maybe you have pain in your arms and legs as well. Have you heard somebody mention the terms disc bulging, disc herniation, spinal stenosis? See, all of those things are things that can be made better through this application of non-surgical spinal decompression treatment. I've gone through a bunch of them myself. I had treatments on my back and on my neck, and it has really, really helped my situation. I think it can help you as well. So listen, if you're a new patient and you want to start this process, it all starts with a phone call, 615-246-5009. Call, make an appointment, and your first appointment is going to be, it's going to be $23. And for that, you'll get an exam, consultation, x-rays. If you have your own MRI or x-rays, bring them in. And your first treatment, you get all of that, $23. You got that on you. And then after that, you'll be able to get half off spinal decompression and half off the KT machine, a revolutionary new piece of equipment developed by Dr. Kevin Mitchell. It's sort of like spinal decompression for the knee, and it can really help you. 615-246-5009. Learn more at painisbad.com.
Four o'clock, I'm Mac Maury with your top stories right now. 82 degrees, partly sunny in Nashville. Traffic and a weather forecast coming up in 5 minutes. Right now in the state of Maine, Michelle Franzen provides an update on the mass shooting in Lewistown last night, with that manhunt still on for the person of interest.
The mass shooting in Lewiston, Maine, now believed to be the deadliest since the Uvalde school shooting. 18 are dead, 13 others injured after a gunman went on a shooting spree at a bowling alley and then a bar. Maine Governor Janet Mills.
This city did not deserve this terrible assault on its citizens, on its peace of mind, on its sense of security. No city does. No state, no people.
The manhunt for suspect and Army reservist Robert Card now expanding. ABC's Pierre Thomas says he's considered armed and dangerous and that he was treated at a mental health facility this summer.
This is literally an all-hands-on-deck situation with hundreds of federal, state, and local law enforcement descending on the scene. The FBI, U.S. Marshals, ATF, all assisting.
Police say they recovered Card's vehicle near a boat dock, and the Coast Guard is also searching waterways. And authorities say they also found a note while conducting a search at Card's home. No word on the details of that note.
And the hospital there in Lewiston had 14 patients arrive last night within a 45-minute span, with 3 of those now dead. They have 8 they're still treating, 5 of those in stable condition, 3 of them in critical condition. And right now in the nation's capital, during the White House press briefing today, White House National Security Spokesman John Kirby discussed the humanitarian aid effort in Gaza amid the war between Israel and Hamas.
Since the 21st of this month, some 74 trucks have now gotten in, 12 over just the last 24 hours. Not enough. More needs to go. And we're working with partners on the ground to see if we can accelerate and increase the flow of humanitarian assistance in.
And over 6,500 reportedly dead in that conflict. Drugs in Tennessee. News 2 says that the Tennessee Department of Mental Health and Substance Abuse Services are receiving $5.4 million through the Overdose Data to Action grant. That money is now going to go towards new initiatives aimed towards preventing substance abuse in the state. TBI says the third most seen substance is fentanyl, second marijuana, and first methamphetamine. The DEA stating that they are seeing an increase in overdoses among children under the age of 14. And this Saturday is National Prescription Drug Take Back Day, which means from 10 to 2 p.m. there will be safe drop-off locations around the state set up to get rid of expired or any unneeded medications. And a man in California has been arrested by the LAPD for allegedly trying to break into Robert Kennedy Jr.'s Los Angeles home twice in one day and asking to see the presidential candidate, Alex Stone.
The ordeal began on Wednesday morning when a man was caught by Robert Kennedy Jr.'s security, allegedly trying to break into the presidential candidate's L.A. home. RFK Jr. and his wife, actress Cheryl Hines, were at home. The LAPD responded on a burglary call and cited and released the man under L.A. County's current $0 cash bail rules for most nonviolent crimes. A restraining order was issued, but then the LAPD and the campaign tell us a man came back a few hours later, and the LAPD was able to book him for violating a court order for returning. Over the summer, there was also an intruder arrested at RFK Jr.'s home.
And that is the latest news. Traffic and weather next. I'm Mac Maury, WTN News.
It is 8 minutes now past the hour of 4 o'clock on Super Talk 99.7. This is hour number 2 of The Drive. Brian Wilson in the chair on this Thursday, October 26th. Let's get you home. There's a lot of stuff that we need to discuss this hour that I think you're going to walk away having learned a few things today, because I learned a few things in a conversation that I had. We'll get to that in a moment. But first, we want to talk about the situation in Maine, where there has been a tragic shooting, 18 people now dead, a total of 13 injured. It happened last night in a little town called Lewiston, and it's in Maine. You start to watch these stories, and they have a predictable arc to them. It seems almost always. And the first thing that you find out is that, there were signs. Everybody saw that there were signs, and that it was predictable there might one day be a rampage. I mean, maybe you've worked in a place where you always thought, there's that one guy in the office who, would climb the tower under the right circumstances, and everybody knows it. In this particular case, I don't know how the signs could have been any more clear than they were about this individual who is now on the lam and has not yet been captured. A massive manhunt is underway throughout the state of Maine, trying to find the individual whose name is Robert Card. More on him in just a moment. Started at about 7 o'clock last night, a little bit before. The Lewiston Auburn Emergency Communications Center received the first 911 call concerning a shooting inside the Spacetime Recreation Bowling Alley in Lewiston. And then at about 7:04, they received 911 calls about an active shooter inside a nearby bar, not exactly nearby, not like across the street nearby, but within a few blocks. And they didn't know whether they had for a while two shooters or one shooter, but it became very clear that it was one shooter on a rampage with what looks to be, by all accounts, an AR-15. At 7:24, the Central Maine healthcare system received the first injured shooting victims, and they received a total of 14 patients. And boy, did they do good work here, because the 14th patient arrived just 45 minutes after the first patient. Now, this is sort of a rural area of Maine, Androscoggin County. The sheriff there confirmed it was investigating two active shooting incidents, and they posted a picture to Facebook of someone, and it was taken from security cameras at the bowling alley, and it saw this individual, Robert Card, very clearly holding what appeared, at least initially, to be an AR-15. And so now they begin the search. They know who they're looking for, and they find a car, and it's a white Subaru. It's been abandoned in an area where there may have been a boat stowed away. It is thought that he ditched the car, got in a boat, and began traveling around the area. And he's still on the run today. Hear how the official count went down from the press conference when they finally got their numbers correct. There were wild numbers in the early going, but that's not uncommon in these kinds of situations. Here is the actual death toll.
The victims at the just-in-time establishment, 7 people are deceased there, 1 female and 6 males, all from an apparent gunshot wound. Victims at the Schmegley's Billiards, 8 are deceased. 7 males inside the establishment, 1 male outside of the establishment.
And so you say, well, that comes to 15. You say the death toll is 18. 3 people died after they got to the hospital. Now, as I said, there's a predictable arc to these stories, and that many times you look and you find out almost immediately that there were signs. There are always signs. It happened with our Covenant shooter. There were signs. Everybody knew that this individual had at one time had guns at Covenant. And we also knew that they were under treatment for some kind of mental condition. never quite clearly disclosed what it was, but undergoing some kind of therapy and treatment, and that there were issues with that individual. Same thing here. You have something that everybody seemed to know there was a problem. Authorities, this is from the Wall Street Journal's done some great reporting. Authorities were on the manhunt for an armed and dangerous suspect wanted for murder after 2 mass shootings in Lewiston, Maine, sent shockwaves through the New England state. It's a dark day for Maine. Maine State Police worked through the night alongside local officers, the FBI, to find Robert Card, 40 years old, their sole named suspect. And it was quite the scene. But here is where the story gets interesting about halfway through the article. Card had a reputation for being someone who was off and had often talked about hearing voices. And he thought those voices were people who were talking badly about him. It started, he said, after he started receiving hearing aids 6 months ago. And he said the aids were to help him hear after he suffered a hearing loss. And they were so sensitive he began complaining of hearing voices. He believed he could hear people say awful things about him, said Katie Card, who lives with her husband and children in a home nearby in Bowdoin, Maine. He was convinced people were saying awful things behind his back. We tried to convince him that was not the case. Katie Card said her brother-in-law had a short stay in a mental hospital last summer, but was allowed to check himself out voluntarily after a couple of weeks. Well, most people believe that when you are in a facility like that for a couple of weeks, it's not a short stay. That's a long stay by today's standard. She said that since then he's been quiet, but continued to think that he heard voices. She goes on to say the shooting is completely out of character with what we know of him. He's hardworking. He's always been quiet and kind. This is just an acute episode. It is not who he is. Well, it was who he was for a short while. They've been trying to message him, by the way, family members, trying to get him to give himself up. So there again, a person with mental issues. He was also, by the way, an Army reservist and was very familiar with weaponry and, in fact, trained people how to use weapons. A U.S. Army reservist, this is the Associated Press, suspected of killing at least 18 people in Maine, had been taken by police for an evaluation after military officials became concerned that he was acting erratically in mid-July. The official said commanders in the Army's Reserve 3rd Battalion, 304th Infantry Regiment became concerned in mid-July that Robert Card was acting erratically while the unit was training at the U.S. Military Academy at West Point in New York. Officials said the military commanders became concerned about Card's safety and asked for the police to be called. New York State Police took Card to the Keller Army Community Hospital at West Point for evaluation. Now, the official was not authorized to publicly discuss information about the incident and spoke to the Associated Press on condition of anonymity. A warrant is out for Card in the attack in Lewiston that set panic bowlers scrambling behind pens. One story that I read today is that a guy heard the first shot. He thought it was a balloon being popped, but he turned in the direction of the sound and saw the guy with the gun, and he literally just ran down the bowling lane at the bowling alley, slid into the pins as if he were the bowling ball, to get up and be protected by the machinery at the back of the bowling alley. I mean, that's how chaotic the situation was. So you have a situation where the family knew there was a problem, right? You have a situation where the military, he was serving as a reservist, and the military identified the problem and had him checked out. So there were all kinds of signs about this individual. Now, everybody says, well, are there red flag laws? Well, no, there's something called a yellow page law where family members can take action. No family members decided to take action, although the signs were very clear. And this seems to be the problem with these so-called red flag laws or yellow flag laws, is that, okay, even if you have those laws in place, the families are very reluctant to do anything to challenge them to take away the weapons. Now, if there was ever somebody who needed to have his weapons taken away, this guy qualified. He was bonkers. He was hearing voices. He was acting weirdly to the point where reservists, had him sent over to the military hospital, and he was in a mental hospital for two weeks until he checked himself out. He was there apparently voluntarily. And then the thing that becomes the next step in this predictable arc, you had somebody who saw that it could happen, and then once it happens, there is a predictable response. Here is the Vice President of the United States.
In our country today, the leading cause of death of American children is gun violence. Gun violence has terrorized and traumatized so many of our communities in this country. And let us be clear, it does not have to be this way.
Here is Karine Jean-Pierre from the White House today.
Let's work together to ban assault weapons and high-capacity magazines. Let's work together to enact universal background checks, require safe storage of guns, and keep guns out of the hands of criminals and dangerous individuals who have no business being armed with a weapon of war. The House has a new speaker who he said he's ready to get to work and to find common ground. Now is the time.
Well, there you have it. I mean, before the crime scene tape is even, been removed from the crime scene, while they're still in the midst of trying to identify the dead people, they don't have the names of about 10 of the people who died as yet, because they haven't been positively identified. That's how fresh this crime scene is in a town that's reeling from such a traumatic event. You can predict always that the Democrats are going to start making these noises even before they have all the facts in. The local man was being interviewed by CNN and was asked, what do you think about this? And he said, and this is a direct quote, in situations like this, where there's somebody out there armed and extremely dangerous, I wish I had a firearm. And he's right. When seconds count, you need to understand the police are minutes away. And, look, this person exhibited all the signs that something needed to be done, and nobody took the action that should have been taken. Very clearly, there were ways to resolve this matter where this person could be kept from being a danger to himself or others. And they just didn't follow it. Nobody took the action. Nobody wanted to press the issue. As I say, these stories have a very predictable arc. 21 minutes now past the hour of 4 o'clock on Super Talk 99.7. Let me tell you about the folks over at Stoltz Co., where they make pole barns. I mean, if you're in the market for a pole barn, the two brothers that run Stoltz Co. are the two guys you need to talk to. Exceptional quality, craftsmanship, and fair prices. They can build a new pole barn to your specifications with your needs in mind. That is the Stoltz Co. difference. You can use pole barns for all kinds of things. It can function as a classic tool and work barn, a garage, or even a place to live. Flexibility is the key. What they do is they combine the classic post-frame barn look with the reliability of modern materials and building techniques to give you a finished barn that will stand the test of time. They do not scrimp on quality. They do not cut corners. They believe their customers deserve only the best. Now, I'm just going to ask you to do this for me. Go to their website, stoltzco.com, STOLTZCO.com, Stoltzco, and take a look at some of the examples of things that they've built for other folks. You'll get some great ideas, and you're going to come away saying, this is not my grandpappy's pole barn. This is something better. 615-622-5992. Stoltz Co., where quality workmanship and great customer service is affordable. Go to stoltzco.com. That's stoltzco.com.
Hey everybody, Dan Mattis with Nashville's Morning News on WTN. I'm here at the Nashville Rescue Mission doing the interviews that I look forward to doing every single year. These are incredible stories of people who have had amazing recoveries. Thanks to this amazing facility, they are able to get clean and lead a more productive life. The date of our annual radiothon is going to be Monday, November 20th. Listen in and please donate. You can get more information at 99.7 WTN, including a link to the website for Nashville's Rescue Mission.
The suspect in the Lewiston, Maine mass shooting still on the run, prompting a massive manhunt. And the latest from Wall Street, I'm Mac Maury on Super Talk, 99.7 WTN.
It is 26 minutes now past the hour, 4 o'clock on this lovely fall day, 78 degrees. Man, I'm telling you, I didn't want to come in. The Bulldog, you'll notice, is not with me today. If you're watching on Super Talk TV, you notice the Bulldog usually sits back there on the couch. Yeah. She wouldn't. No, she's not having anything to do with me today. She's sitting out there on the cabana.
Just too nice.
It's just too nice. And I was almost on the cabana today, but I got behind and didn't have time to set it all up. I may do that tomorrow. We'll see.
All right.
I mean, tomorrow's not going to be as nice as today. It's going to be warm, but it's going to be kind of cloudy.
Yeah.
Cloudy, really, slight chance of rain.
Yeah.
Oh, really? Tomorrow?
Like very light, but it is still.
I think you'll be okay.
Yeah, you'll probably be fine.
I don't know.
And now I scared you.
But if you don't get it tomorrow.
Oh yeah, it's going to be too chilly next week.
Start getting cool.
Yeah.
Now I wouldn't have a problem with being out on the cabana next week. But you and your thin skin, you may not like it, Brian.
Tomorrow, 78 and cloudy here in bucolic Watertown. Mostly sunny today. But there were, I don't know. I just didn't get around to it. There's a lot going on. Where, every day I start out with things that I'm going to accomplish. And then I get that phone call.
Of the things that you're actually going to get accomplished.
Yeah, the mid-morning phone call with my list of honeydews, the things that I need to accomplish. So that generally, if you're a smart man, you know that takes precedent over the things that you wanted to do.
Mm-hmm.
And now you have a whole list of things that you must do.
That you're gonna do.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And a lot of times it has to do with dishes. But anyway. Let's see. I want to talk a little bit about the border situation. This one is one of those stories that I think we'll call this news that can light your fuse. It really will irritate you. Federal border authorities apprehending Palestinian migrants crossing into the United States on the southern border of this country are counting them as other nationalities, according to the former chief of Border Patrol and current agency official who's familiar with the process. In addition to the current and former agency officials that confirmed that Palestinians aren't classified as such when they're apprehended and processed as the border, the Daily Caller News Foundation obtained screenshots of Border Patrol internal systems showing that Palestine is not a category and that searching for it results in no matches. Federal intelligence officials have warned that Palestinian terrorists could be crossing the southern border and come into the United States and to be on the lookout for them, but they don't actually have a classification for Palestinians. You know what they're classified as? Israelis. Well, yeah, because, Gaza is not a country. Border Patrol agents confirmed there are no categories for Gaza or the West Bank in the country of origin classification. There's no written policy on how to record a Palestinian. In my experience, since this falls within the legal borders of Israel, individuals will be documented as being Israelis, which is not a very easily searchable and would not likely explain that the individual claims to be a Palestinian. Seemed like, given the fact that, there's a difference between Israelis and Palestinians, and that the Palestinians might be of a greater risk if they got into this country, that we would have a way to designate that, but we don't. One agent who's previously processed Palestinians that possessed passports issued by the Palestinian Authority told the Daily Caller News Foundation that they classified them as being Israelis. I processed some Palestinians before this all popped off, the agent who requested anonymity because they're not authorized to speak publicly, adding that they processed them as Israeli even though they had passports issued by the Palestinian Authority. Two other agents confirmed to the DCNF that they can't classify them as Palestinians as such. When I looked in our processing module, no such category exists. It's not an option in the software. Are you kidding me? Are you kidding me? This drives me crazy! Everybody, I don't want to leave you in a state of anger. Take a deep breath now. In with the good air. Now I'm still pissed off. I'm sorry. It is 31 minutes past the hour.
It's 31 minutes after the hour, 4 o'clock. I'm Mac Maury with your top stories. Right now, 81 degrees, partly sunny on Music Row. Full weather forecast, that latest traffic report. It's headed your way in 5 minutes. Authorities in Maine today saying that 18 people have been killed, 13 others injured in last night's shooting in Lewiston, Maine. And that suspect, Robert Card, is still at large and to be considered armed and dangerous. Here's Aaron Katersky on the suspect.
They found his car at a boat launch in Lisbon, Maine, which is about 8 miles from Lewiston. And they also have discovered that he had a boat in his name. So it's possible he's on the river somewhere. But we know that there's been a number of areas in and around Lewiston that have been searched. Helicopters are overhead. They surged resources from neighboring states and from the FBI and other federal agencies in. And this is what one police official called an all-hands-on-deck approach.
And we also know that Card spent 2 weeks over the summer in a mental health facility, and he reported hearing voices in his head, and he had threatened to shoot up a National Guard base in another area in Maine where he has apparent military ties. And now over to the Money News for today. Chuck Sievertson.
Major indexes end the day lower thanks to losses from big tech, which had their worst single-day performance in 8 months. The Nasdaq shed 226 points, losing 1.7%. The Dow dropped 252 points, while the S&P fell 50. Meta Platforms weighed the heaviest, losing almost 4% despite the fact that the parent company of Instagram and Facebook reported better than expected summer profit and revenue. Investors could have been reacting to the company's warning that it's seen some softness in advertising due to the Israel-Hamas war. The Commerce Department says the nation's economy grew at a better-than-expected 4.9% annual rate from July through September. Toyota is recalling about 751,000 large SUVs in the U.S. to fix a problem with the tabs that hold front bumper covers on. Vice President Harris will attend an artificial intelligence summit in the U.K. next week, one day after President Biden is expected to unveil an executive order on the technology.
And that is the latest news. Traffic and weather up next. I'm Mac Morey, WTN News.
Let me tell you about the folks over at DT McCall. You know, listen, it's a great company. It's been around for more than 100 years here in Middle Tennessee, and they have a reputation for treating people right. That's why they've survived so long as a very successful business. So what do you need for your house? Do you need furniture? Do you need appliances? Do you need whatever it is? You're going to find it at DT McCall. 5 convenient locations. And they're going to deal honestly with you. You know, here's the thing. If you go to a big box store, they're going to play a game with you where, you know, they give you a price and then you think that's a pretty good price. And so you decide to go forward. Then they add on charges for things like delivery and setup and haul away of the old thing. And then you find out, well, it really wasn't a very good price at all. See, DT McCall just doesn't play that game. They're going to give you a good price, and it's an honest price. They'll never charge you extra for the delivery or the setup or the haul away of the old thing. They won't charge you extra for the hoses and the cables or the doodads that you need to make the thing work. No, they don't play that game. And that's why they have such a good reputation. If you haven't been to a DT McCall's, you need to go to one. As I said, 5 convenient locations here in Middle Tennessee. Find out about all the things they can do for you and the places that you can go just by going to their website, dtmccalls.com.
I love the state of Tennessee. I love everything about it, and I love hunting and fishing in the state of Tennessee, and what you guys do is so great. I was born and raised here, and this song is for Tennessee and everybody in it. Well, I have roamed across the land, and I have sailed deepest sea. When I've drawn my last breath, do this one thing for me. Say, won't you take me back to Tennessee, where southern streams are flowing free. Me and mine, Lord, will always be right at home in Tennessee. Right at home in the woods of Tennessee. Right at home in Tennessee. Awesome.
.39 past the hour of 4 o'clock. We're rocking right along here on the drive today. Hope you're having a good one. I've been talking a lot about how the town of Nashville seems to be getting to be a bit more dangerous and sort of a mean town of late. And I've been trying to explore, why this is. And I'm in a few moments I'll share with you something that I learned today in a very interesting conversation with a listener who was able to give me a perspective I had not considered before. But let me first talk about, again, another example of how bad it's getting in this town. Stephanie Langston, she's, I think, a really strong reporter over at Channel 2. She has a story here about something known, in the community as the Music City War Zone, and what's being done to make the residents in North Nashville feel safer than they are now. I'm going to read a little bit from her story. More than a dozen shots rang out early Wednesday morning in a part of North Nashville that one neighborhood called the Music City War Zone. Thomas Dodson said 20 to 30 gunshots were fired at this address on Buchanan Street, 1613 Buchanan Street, around 5 a.m. And Thomas Dodson, the resident, says it's getting worse, not better. It happens frequently, a lot of shots. It's not just one or two, it's multiple shots all the time, said Sheila Jones, who lives in the area. Gunfire is all too familiar sound for people like Jones who've lived off Buchanan Street since 2006. This really has been going on for quite some time, and when I say time, I'm talking about years. It seems to be worse now than ever for whatever reason. It is a problem, Jones said. Many community members pointed to a market at 1613 Buchanan Street as a gathering space where much of the local crime unfolds. I would say it's a disaster zone. A request for calls of service from the Metro Nashville Police Department to the address showed that there have been more than 300 calls to that location since June 1st. However, authorities warned some of it could be repeat calls or unrelated to crime. News 2 has covered countless shootings in the area, she says, but the most recent incident was a fight that reportedly ended with a man being run over in the liquor store parking lot, killing him. Metro Council member Brandon Taylor said he has heard complaints and lives in the area, so he knows the issues all too well. He's been working with law enforcement to mitigate the activity at the address, calling his efforts an uphill battle for 5 years. There are homeless people going on up there. She said there's trafficking, includes drugs, alcohol, soliciting, all sorts of things. It seems to be like ground central for bad behavior in North Nashville. Officers with Metro Nashville's police department say they've conducted a number of self-initiated patrols in the area, but they want to see more done to keep the area safe. Some in the neighborhood want that market closed, saying that they would feel safer and it would look better if that market were just simply closed down. Look, that is, I think police officers understand the difficulty of that area. And I think that they're trying to do as best they can to solve that problem. But the problem is that we just have a lot of mean people some of them who are violent criminals who should not have guns, who still have guns. And they're not being processed by the criminal justice system, and they're not being put in jail. They're not having a trial. And so how is that happening? Well, I've been talking a lot about how I think it's the prosecutors who are not prosecuting these cases, and maybe the judges who are not sentencing people are to time behind bars, which I think would be very helpful to get these people locked up. And I think those are indeed truly part of the problem. But I've also been made aware of another issue that sort of causes those things to happen. And it's not on the front end, it's on the back end. It's jails. Now let's talk a little bit about jails. Jails are expensive. In a county budget, a jail may be one of the more expensive items that is on that budget, probably right behind schools, as the things that taxpayer dollars are used to support. Most of our jails in this area are full up. We don't have enough jail space. So what happens, okay? So a police officer makes the arrest, and then a grand jury hands down an arrest warrant, and what happens to that warrant? Well, they look at it. It arrives over at the sheriff's department. Sheriff's offices in the state of Tennessee are responsible for delivering warrants and bringing people in, but they're also responsible for running the county jails. And so they are very aware that, well, I can bring this person in, but I don't really have a place to put them. My jail is full up. So what happens? After the indictment and after the warrant for the arrest has been issued, sometimes those warrants just go into a drawer. They don't get served. And the reason is because if they serve it, then they're going to have to put people in jail, and they don't have a place to put them in jail. So there is this constant battle that's going on between, the people that I have in jail. Some of them are really bad criminals, and some of them have committed things like shoplifting or something like that. In order to make an opening for a really bad person before I go and arrest them, I've got to clear a spot, which means that I need to let somebody out of jail, and it seems increasingly you're letting out the least offensive of the criminals, but some of those criminals are still pretty offensive, still pretty violent. So have they been in jail for a while? Have they behaved themselves? Okay, so the judge and the sheriff and the district attorney all get together and decide, well, let's let this person out. Let's change their sentence for time served to make room for a worse criminal to go in. And there's this constant battle going on, and what happens is that a lot of dangerous people, there are warrants for their arrest, but they have no place to put them. And so the practical solution is don't serve the warrant until you have a place to put them. And that's why we hear these cases where, the case of John Drake Jr., where you had a situation where he had 59 different encounters with police. And I asked, why was he in jail? Well, part of the problem is they don't have room in jail. Nobody in county government wants to build more jail space. I mean, come on. You take in tax dollars from the community, and you want to give them things that they will see that benefit the community, things like parks and good good services and excellent schools. Nobody wants to take that money and put it into building more jail cells, and so they don't. So one of the things that's going to have to happen, I think, to sort of make room for some of these people, is we're going to have more jail space. We've got to figure out a way to build more jails to accommodate the violent people that need to go there. And if you do that, if you have the space, then those warrants come out of the drawer and they get served and trials occur and people go to jail. In the meantime, part of the problem is, I think, prosecutors, and I think it's also judges not handing down big sentences because they really know that there's no place to put these people, and because there are no jail spaces available. But we need to maybe fix the problem by making a commitment. Maybe it's on the state level. They're expensive to operate. We're talking about all these millions of dollars that are going to community policing. Maybe we spend some of those $1 million to build physical jail space, which will also help to correct the situation. Now, look, it's a multi-pronged problem. But at the end of the day, people are not going to be prosecuted and they're not going to be put in jail if there's no place to put them. They're under a lot of pressure to cut plea deals because there's no place to put them in jail. That's part of the problem we need to recognize, and perhaps maybe the General Assembly, when they come together in January, could take a look at this situation and say, well, how can we help these communities that are riddled with crime right now and get these violent people off the street? Part of the answer, I think, is going to be you've got to have a place to put them. 49 minutes now past the hour of 4 o'clock on Super Talk. Hey, listen, think about your insurance for a moment. Do you have replacement costs on the coverage of your roof? If the answer is not yes, then you don't. And that means that insurance companies will depreciate how much they pay for any roof claim that you might have to submit, potentially leaving you with a lot of money in out-of-pocket expenses. See, that's the kind of question that someone should be asking you. And that's what the folks over at King & Associate Insurance in Brentwood will do. They'll ask you that question, among others. An independent agency, they've been around in business in Brentwood for some 25 years. There's a lot of advantages to dealing with an independent agency. Number one, they can find the right policy that meets your exact needs. They're not just taking something they have off the shelf like the big internet companies do. They're going to find something that really meets your need at a good price that gives you the kind of coverage that really fits the need you have at your home. And then the other thing is, I think you're going to get great customer service across the board. And I'll give you an example of that. When you call this number, 615-329-8121, you're not going to be standing on tapping your toe, waiting for somebody to actually get on the line. There's not a call center. It's not a phone tree. You get a phone call that is answered by an actual person every time. I mean, right there, that's a good reason, isn't it? Isn't it maddening when you have to sit there and wait for hours to get somebody on the line and they're really never going to be able to solve your problem anyway? It won't happen at T. King Insurance. Listen, multi-policy discounts can save you a lot of money. They know how to take advantage of that, the so-called bundling. So get your royal review with King & Associates Insurance. Log on to tkinginsurance.com. That's King Assurance & Associates, royal treatment and great rates.
A Roth IRA versus a traditional IRA. Which one should we do? A lot of people struggle over this particular decision. And I'll just give you a couple tools to figure out what might be better for you. Think about it this way. Let's say if I had $1,000 that I was thinking about investing, that was income, $1,000 of income. With an IRA, let's say that you're in a 30% tax bracket. Let's say there is such a thing. And you want to put this money in an IRA. You're going to save $300 in taxes. Now, if you go post-tax with like a Roth IRA, this is how much goes into the Roth IRA. Now, let's say that later on down the road, we have this money and it didn't grow at all, just to keep the math really simple. And let's say that at some point in the future, you're in a lower tax bracket, because the way our tax system works is that your first income is taxed at a really low rate, and then you get up into higher rates, 10%, 12%, 22%, and so on and so forth. It gets higher. If you're earning income and you're at that particular tax rate up there, you might want to avoid that tax rate right now and take the income at a later point in time when you're in a lower average tax rate. Now let's say that you're in a 10% bracket down here when you pull the money. How much are you going to pay in taxes? 10% of $1,000 is $100. How much do you get to spend? $900. Well, even though I didn't have growth, I had growth because of the difference between my tax rate here in here. And that's the idea. That's one of the things that we look at. We look at Social Security taxation, income taxation, and a lot of factors that might drive you into higher or lower brackets in the future. If you want to learn more about our approach to investing and financial planning, go to paulwinkler.com and set up a free 15-minute phone call or call 615-851-1950.
The manhunt goes on for Robert Card, the person of interest in the mass shooting that happened last night in Lewiston, Maine. The House of Representatives now actually able to work, and some crime in Tennessee. Those stories and more coming up at 5 o'clock on Super Talk 99.7 WTN.
We are learning a great deal bit more about how the events that led up to the sad death of John Drake Jr., who took his own life after shooting at a couple of police officers and injuring them severely. He shot himself in a shed after police, were able to find him. They were able to find him because they got a 911 call saying a woman called and said, "Hey, the guy just took my car."
I just got robbed at gunpoint. He took my car. I don't know. Okay. He was I just pulled up. Yes, I'm with my neighbor. And he has a ski mask on. He has a white tank top on. He has hair on his chest. He has a tattoo on that. I don't know what it says. He asked me for a ride. I told him I don't have any gas and I can't go anywhere. And he just told me to get out of the car. at gunpoint.
Well, they picked up on the car right away. Helicopter chased him for a long while before he abandoned and ended up in that shed. Police surrounded the shed, and of course now we know, sadly, he took his life. But it is the work done by that helicopter team, by the way, was phenomenal. You should watch it. If you get a chance to look at it, you'll be quite impressed with what they can do. 58 minutes now past the hour of 4 o'clock on Super Talk. Let me tell you about the folks over at Everseal. And really, I need to start by explaining what Everseal is. It's a remarkable sealant for exterior wood and concrete. The technology has been around for ages, been used in industrial applications for many years, and the folks over at Everseal figured out how to provide this permanent solution for sealing your exterior wood and concrete at a price that home and business owners can actually afford. First thing they do is they come in and they do a deep cleaning to make sure your wood surfaces, your concrete looks as brand new as it possibly can look. And then they apply their patented sealant, which absorbs all the way through to become a permanent part of your wood and concrete and will prevent further deterioration for the next 30 to 50 years. That's right, 30 to 50 years. Think of all the time you'll save not having to do this every year. Think about all the money you'll save not having to do this every year. Think about how you can actually enjoy your outdoor surfaces rather than have to worry about, working on them all the time. Sounds good to you? Why don't you reach out to Steve Nelson, the team over at Everseal? Here's the number, 844-EVER-USA. That's 844-EVER-USA. Learn more at ever-seal.com.
It's 5:01. I'm Mac Maury with your top stories right now. 80 degrees in Nashville, and we got a cloudy couple days ahead with some possible showers starting Saturday afternoon. Latest traffic report and a weather forecast on the way in 5 minutes. Right now in the state of Maine, Chuck Severston provides an update on the mass shooting in Lewiston last night, with the manhunt still on for that person of interest, Robert Card.
The mass shooting in Lewiston, Maine, now believed to be the deadliest since the Uvalde school shooting. 18 are dead, 13 others injured after a gunman went on a shooting spree at a bowling alley and then a bar. Maine Governor Janet Mills.
This city did not deserve this terrible assault on its citizens, on its peace of mind, on its sense of security. No city does. No state, no people.
The manhunt for suspect and Army reservist Robert Card now expanding. ABC's Pierre Thomas says he's considered armed and dangerous and that he was treated at a mental health facility this summer.
This is literally an all-hands-on-deck situation with hundreds of federal, state, and local law enforcement descending on the scene. The FBI, U.S. Marshals, ATF, all assisting.
Police say they recovered Card's vehicle near a boat dock, and the Coast Guard is also searching waterways. And authorities say they also found a note while conducting a search at Card's home. No word on the details of that note.
And the hospital had 14 patients arrive last night within a 45-minute span. 3 of those dying as they arrived. Now, 8 still treating, 5 of those in stable condition, 3 of those people in critical condition. And Card's sister believes that a possible motive to the shooting could be his ex-girlfriend. It's unclear the specifics, but that's what his sister believes. In the nation's capital, the House has a speaker, and that means they can actually discuss and hopefully sign off some appropriation bills to avoid a full-on government shutdown on November 17th. Alabama Representative Gary Palmer joined WTN's The Matt Murphy Show today and discussed why he put his name in the race, and it wasn't necessarily to win.
I kept thinking when we kept having these conference meetings and people weren't listening to anything, really. It was, and there were some things that I felt like needed to be said to the conference when they could listen. So I put my name in the hat so that I would be able to be a part of that 2-hour candidate forum and talk about how we fixed our appropriations process and how we put together an agenda that the American people will believe in.
And Palmer said that they voted on 18 amendments today. That's the same number of votes that were had for Speaker. Crime right now in Tennessee. Montgomery County Police are looking for a man wanted on several charges. Jacorvius Osborne is a suspect in several vehicle thefts near Guthrie, Kentucky. He's considered armed and dangerous, potentially may use fake names or aliases to avoid being caught. Police are asking that if you have any information, call 911. That is the latest news. Traffic and weather on the way. I'm Mac Morey, WTN News.
It is 8 minutes past the hour of 5 o'clock. Hey, are you ready for hour number 3 of The Drive? We got all kinds of new stuff to bring you this hour, including, it's really become a fan favorite, Mac Morey's Wide World of Sports coming up in about, about 15 minutes or so. And Mac is going to give us some good stuff. And by the way, I have a new poll, Mac, that I'm going to share with you.
Oh, I'm excited. Okay.
The most obnoxious SEC fans.
Oh,
That's
that ought to
perfect. Yes.
Yeah, so we'll talk about that. Who are the most obnoxious? Well, there's actually somebody thought to ask that question in a poll, and we'll have the answer. Want to start out by going down to the swamp and talking about that, if I could. We got, yesterday, finally, we got a new speaker, and glad that whole thing has been, moved off dead center. His name is Mike Johnson, Republican of Louisiana. And he has decided that he's going to make among his top priorities. Boy, I tell you, I don't argue with any of this. Debt, inflation, and the border catastrophe. It's not too much of that's really an accurate statement about what the border situation is. It is a catastrophe. Rolling back excessive government spending as a way to reduce inflation. He's also called on the Senate and the White House to stop ignoring the catastrophe in the southern border. Described the nation's rising $33 trillion national debt as the greatest threat to national security and connected it to the level of inflation that American families have been grappling with for the last few years. The greatest threat to our national security is national debt. And while we've been sitting in this room, that's right, the debt has crossed almost $33.6 trillion. And it's going to take, then the time it's going to take me to deliver this speech, it will go up another $20 million in debt. Can you think about that? Guy gives a 5-minute speech, and our national debt goes up $20 million. Wow. Really quite something. And he's right. And I like this guy. It'd be interesting to see, whether or not they can get the spending bills across the goal line in a timely fashion. They've got until November 17th. That's how long they have to get, approval to get the government running. I don't know that that's going to be enough time because, you've lost 3 weeks here where they couldn't take any bills to the floor. But they're supposed to be out next week back in the home district, but they're not going to be doing that. They're going to be staying in town and trying to crank out these appropriation bills. And then, it's got to go to the Senate. The Senate has to have its say, and then because the Senate versions and the House versions are likely to be very different, then they got to go to conference, and that takes time. So it'll be interesting to see, whether or not we have to have another extension, or whether the government needs to shut down for a while until the Democrats over in the Senate get their act together. Democrats, of course, predictably do not like this new guy. They call him appalling. They call him dangerous. Dangerous. He wants to focus on debt, inflation, and the border catastrophe. That's dangerous. That's a dangerous agenda. And if you're a Democrat, Mike Johnson isn't a household name. People are Googling him just to find out who he is. But let me warn you, he's as dangerous as anyone in the speaker's chair. Well, if you're a Democrat, you got to be worried about somebody who wants to work on debt, inflation, and border issues. The left-leaning League of Conservation Voters offered their spin on the mild-mannered Johnson, described by many as Mr. Nice. They call him MAGA Mike Johnson. MAGA Mike Johnson. Well, there you go. Predictable. I think he's a good guy. I like him. Look, I don't know the guy from Adam. I'm making a first judgment based on his performance yesterday, and I thought it was a brilliant performance. I think he's a good communicator. He comes across as a man who has some very strong ideas about what he'd like to see accomplished, but also who's approaching it with a bit of humility. There is a picture that I know you probably have seen online of the new speaker and several other members stopping, kneeling, and praying in the House of Representatives after this all took place. I think by reputation, he's said to be a good man and a godly man, and I think I'm happy with this choice. Let's get busy. There are things to accomplish. Also in the swamp, This story, again, from Just the News, but it comes from Chuck Grassley over in the Senate. And more information that we're getting about conversations that have taken place behind closed doors as they have interviewed former U.S. attorneys. The prosecutor told the the House Judiciary Committee that the Biden bribery claim was credible, that they had a lot of good information that should have been followed up on, but apparently the folks at the FBI were not interested in doing that. Former Pittsburgh U.S. Attorney Scott Brady revealed to the House Judiciary Committee that his team found enough credible evidence in its initial review of Hunter Biden's dealings with the Ukrainian energy company Burisma Holdings and possible corruption by Joe Biden to refer criminal matters to 3 separate U.S. attorney offices in Brooklyn, Manhattan, and Delaware for further investigation. But almost immediately after he was assigned by the Justice Department in 2020 to review Biden family matters in Ukraine, Brady said he encountered resistance at both the FBI and the Delaware U.S. Attorney's Office that at times required him to escalate to his bosses in the Deputy Attorney General's office. It was a challenging working relationship, Brady said of the FBI in testimony earlier this week. I think there was reluctance on the part of the FBI to really do any tasking related to our assignment, from Deputy Attorney General Rosen, looking into the allegations of Ukrainian corruption broadly, and then specifically anything that intersected with Hunter Biden and his role in Burisma. It was very challenging. Brady's testimony emerged the same day that Senator Chuck Grassley revealed that the FBI, you ready for this one, had more than 40 informants providing evidence of possible criminality by the Biden family, dating back years, but that most leaders were shut down, particularly by the FBI's Washington field office or its New York counterintelligence office. Brady was critical of the FBI, noting the FBI never told his office it had Hunter Biden's laptop and had corroborated its contents, even as DOJ prosecutors investigated the Ukraine allegations. That would have been something, especially as he's been publicly reported. There's information related to Hunter Biden's activities on the board of Burisma in Ukraine that might have been helpful in our assessment of the information that we were receiving about him. I would have expected that would be shared. They kept it from him. You think that there's not corruption. You think that the deep state is not real. Look at this story. This will hack you off. This will make you so very angry. Speaking generally from a process perspective, I think there was both a skepticism of the information we were developing that we had received and skepticism and then weariness of that information. I think they were very concerned about any information sharing with our office. It became problematic at different points, which required Mr. Weiss and me to get involved and level set as we were, but it was regularly a challenge to interact with the investigative team from Delaware. Brady said the resistance required him at multiple times to appeal to higher-ups. Wow. I mean, honestly, there is a dual standard at play here. These deep state folks get buried in at various levels of government, and they can absolutely cause an investigation to come screeching to a stop. And I'm hoping that now that you have Republicans looking over the shoulder of the Department of Justice and the FBI and trying to hold them accountable and actually conducting their own independent investigation, that we can get somewhere. But when the Democrats were in charge, nobody was really interested in looking all that closely. And when they started to dig stuff up, and they had 40-some sources saying there's something wrong here, there's something that's not right, you need to do something about this, the FBI would drag their feet. Bureaucrat the thing to death. Also from the swamp today, Jamal Bowman turns himself in and pleads guilty while doubling down. This is the guy who pulled the fire alarm at the Capitol grounds just prior to a vote seeking to avert a government shutdown. Surveillance cameras caught the far-left congressman in the act, though he would later claim he thought that pulling the alarm would open the adjacent door. I've heard there's a story out there that says there's a video clip that shows him removing the fire alarm signs before he pulled the fire alarm. I don't know. But he had to go and face charges. Bowman has become one of the more controversial members of Congress with his short tenure, including the heckling of Republicans in the hallway and voting against the recent resolution to condemn Hamas terrorist attacks in Israel. Finally, I don't know what to make of this. Supreme Court Justice Clarence Thomas apparently failed to pay back a substantial portion of a $267,000 RV loan. This was for a Prevost camper unit. The Prevost, that's pretty nice. And according to documents obtained by the committee, the loan amounted to approximately $267,000. He made several payments, but they were mostly interest payments. And then the guy who made the loan to him forgave the rest of the loan. Welters believed that Thomas had paid interest greater than the purchase price of the bus, and Welters did not feel it was appropriate to continue to accept payments even though he had a right to them. And there was a handwritten note from Mr. Welter addressed to Justice Thomas about this matter. The committee says it has not provided additional documents to Mr. Welters that could offer more clarity on the agreement. And apparently you can forgive a loan and it's a taxable break, and maybe that's what he was going for there. He says he made interest payments that were worth more than the bus, but he did not, interest payments worth more than the bus, Honestly, we all buy cars and we pay a lot more than the car is worth by the time we get through paying off our car, right? That's the way it goes. Well, anyway, that is no doubt going to undergo a bit of scrutiny. 20 minutes now past the hour of 5 o'clock. Listen, Legend Steakhouse, first thing I want to leave you with is this reminder that Veterans Day is not far off. Happens, early in November. And on Veterans Day, veterans eat for free at the Legend Steakhouse. That's right. So, you need to go by there and let them honor you with a good meal. Legend Steakhouse, have you thought about going by there for dinner? Maybe a good steak tonight at Legend Steakhouse? Well, that's good and fine, but they also want to remind you that they're open at lunch for a quick lunch, a meat and two, things like fried pork chops, Smoky Mountain meatloaf, fried catfish, slow-cooked pot roast gravy, and then the sides, 14 vegetables and casseroles to choose from, broccoli casserole, turnip greens, bourbon-glazed apples, fried green tomatoes, potato casseroles, black-eyed peas, just to name a few. We don't have time to name all 14, but then really, honestly, it's good home cooking, the kind that your mama made. In fact, these recipes came from Johnny's mom. He borrowed them 30 years ago, and, well, he just never got them back to her. Legend Steakhouse has multiple locations across Middle Tennessee, known for good food at a fair price. If you're in Davidson County, check out their Smyrna location. Open 7 days a week for lunch and dinner. Go to legendsteakhouse.com for all the locations and where you can do a little online menu ordering on the way home if you want. Tennessee company, it's been around for 34 years. You're going to love your next visit to Legend Steakhouse.
Hey everybody, Dan Mattis with Nashville's Morning News on WTN. I'm here at the Nashville Rescue Mission doing the interviews that I look forward to doing every single year. These are incredible stories of people who have had amazing recoveries. Thanks to this amazing facility, they are able to get clean and lead a more productive life. The date of our annual radiothon is going to be Monday, November 20th. Listen in and please donate. You can get more information at 99.7 WTN, including a link to the website for Nashville's Rescue Mission.
Starting to hear some tragic stories from families of the loved ones and victims in that mass shooting in Maine. Crime here in Tennessee, plus some news out of the nation's capital concerning the war between Israel and Hamas. That and more, 5:30 right here. Super Talk 99.7 WTN.
It's time for a fan favorite, Mac Maury's Wide World of Sports.
Spanning the globe to bring you the constant variety of sport, the thrill of victory, and the agony of defeat.
That's right. It's time for Mac Maury's Wide World of Sports. I think it's wide and wild.
Depends on the day, I guess.
Well, I think it depends on. We don't want to have any copyright issues here, so we'll call it the Wild World of Sports. But here's Mac Maury, the host of your show, ladies and gentlemen.
Hello. Sometimes, the title of the program has to change a couple weeks in. That's okay.
That's all right. I don't want somebody telling, well, we ripped that idea off. We would never do something like that. No, we would never take a concept and call it our own.
Purely a coinkydink.
Yeah, I think that's right. Well, what do you got on tap for us today, Mac?
Well, I know you've got a SEC poll that I'm on the edge of my seat to hear more about, so I want to make sure we get to that. But I was just going to go through some sports tonight, what to watch if you're looking for something to do and you want to go catch a game on the TV. We've obviously got Thursday night football tonight, Bucks at the Bills. Tampa Bay Buccaneers coming in this game 3-3. The Bills, a team that was talked about as a Super Bowl contender, and they've been deep in the playoffs the past few seasons. One of the top tier quarterbacks in the league, Josh Allen, 4-3. Not exactly the record you'd want if you're a team of that sort of echelon. The Bills looking to get back on track here with a couple of bad losses last week to what is a garbage New England Patriots team. That's who they lost to last week. So they're looking to get back on
Isn't it
track.
Strange to say that, though?
It is.
After so many years on top with Brady, that they're not doing so well, I guess, is not surprising.
And I say it with a smile. And then there's and then there's some basketball. If we talked about that big trade, Damian Lillard, one of the best players, going to join maybe the best player in the league, Giannis Antetokounmpo. Tonight's their debut as a duo for the NBA. So that'll be kind of cool. They're playing the Philadelphia 76ers in Milwaukee.
Speaking of the NBA, real quick, I saw today that the new hotshot phenom got his first game action last night, right?
Yes, last night Victor Wembanyama got to debut.
It's easy for you to say.
7'5", can dribble and shoot like a guard, blocking players like he's the 7'5" guy that he is, running the court.
Wow, 7'5".
Yeah, man, it's crazy. It's insane. So it was super fun to watch him. The Spurs, in what was a close game, they ended up taking a loss.
All right.
But yeah, I want to hear about this SEC poll you got here, Brian.
Well, the folks at Beacon, they did a political poll, but then they also went, and by the way, it showed that Trump is leading Biden 2-1 in Tennessee. Not a surprise there. And they did some other, polling of political data in the state of Tennessee. But then they asked people in Tennessee to name the most obnoxious SEC fans.
Ooh.
And I have the results here.
Can we guess?
Well, let me go. I'm going to go in reverse order.
Okay, I like that.
Ole Miss came in with 5% of the vote.
Okay, wow.
People thought that the people who support Ole Miss were pretty good fans. Georgia Bulldogs come in right behind them with 6% of the vote.
That's respectable.
So that's pretty good. That's that's number 2. You can try harder. The Vols came in with 18% of the vote.
Wow, really?
Okay.
Yeah.
I am very surprised they're that low.
Me too.
Just saying.
Yeah.
As a Vol, I am too.
The Florida Gators came in at 18% of the vote.
They should be higher.
They should be too.
Yeah, I think. Well, hold on a minute. And so, can I have a little drum roll here? Is that possible there, Chris? The most obnoxious fans, as outlined in this poll, was Alabama, coming in with 30% of the vote.
Yeah, no big surprise.
There it is. Yep.
Yeah. But you know what, though? It's because they've been good for so long. That's why because it's not
Everybody hates
Alabama
them, right?
fans that are saying we're obnoxious. It's all the other SEC fans that are saying Alabama's. If Alabama had just been okay for the last decade, they probably wouldn't think they were so obnoxious.
Yeah, Weber, you got to watch your back. If your Bulldogs get a third championship, they're going to be moving up that list.
Oh, yeah, they're coming
moving
for
up
us.
that
I
list.
know. Yeah.
Stop barking at people.
I think it's because the whole smoking a big cigar after the end of a victory sort of comes across as gloating.
Yeah, very egotistical.
Yeah, they've kind of earned it over the last 15 years, though.
Yeah,
haven't they?
Yeah. Yeah, I guess.
And I'm not going to lie, I was definitely ready to light one up last Saturday, but obviously didn't get to. So I can't say I don't want to partake.
It didn't come your way, did it? No.
No, it didn't.
All right. And right now, it's 30 minutes past the hour. Time for Mac to take off his sports hat, put on his news hat, because news is next on Super Talk.
.30, I'm Mac Maury with your top stories. Right now, 79 degrees on Music Row, a full weather forecast, the latest traffic report on the way in 5 minutes. And we're starting to hear from heartbroken families of some of the victims of the mass shooting in Maine as the search continues for the alleged gunman. At least 18 people were killed, more than a dozen injured, 3 critically, when police say Robert Card walked into 2 locations, a bowling alley and a restaurant, and opened fire with an assault rifle. And among those victims, Joseph Walker, who was a manager at the restaurant Shaminji's Bar and Grill. Leroy Walker Sr. says he was told his son died while trying to stop the shooter.
I knew in my heart if he had any possible way of doing it, that he would do it. Because my kids have all been brought up that way. You don't run from fear, and you don't run from some idiot.
And we know he also spent 2 weeks over the summer in a mental health facility. Robert Card, the suspect, that is, he reported hearing voices in his head, and he had threatened to shoot up a National Guard base in Saco, Maine, where he has apparent military ties. Transitioning over now to some crime in the Volunteer State, Channel 4 says that a teenager was indicted after allegedly breaking into a woman's home and kidnapping her children. 19-year-old James Ezekiel Johnson reportedly forced himself into a home on Elm Hill Pike by breaking a window, busting down the front door. The woman says that Johnson is her boyfriend's brother. He pointed a gun at her and demanded to know where the children were before slapping her with a pistol in the face, causing a deep cut. After he left with those children, they were later found unharmed. And right now in the nation's capital, during the White House briefing today, White House National Security Spokesman John Kirby discussed the humanitarian aid effort in Gaza amid the war between Israel and Hamas.
Since the 21st of this month, some 74 trucks have now gotten in, 12 over just the last 24 hours. Not enough. More needs to go. And we're working with partners on the ground to see if we can accelerate and increase the flow of humanitarian assistance in.
And over 6,500 people reportedly dead in that conflict. That is the latest news. Traffic, weather on the way. I'm Mac Maury, WTN News.
Well, Grace Point Healthcare wants you to know that they deliver medicine affordably with menu-style transparent pricing, so you know how much it will cost before the care is delivered. That's a great concept. And they have these smart care plans. Now, honestly, I want you to stop and think. Many people are making healthcare decisions right now about what insurance they're going to take and what kind of deductible they're going to have and all that kinds of thing. I mean, I just went through that whole thing. I know a lot of people are. Well, you might want to think about one of these smart care plans as part of your entire package. Starts at $69 a month. And for that, you get unlimited office visits and free basic labs for the entire year. And then because they treat families, you can get a family plan as well. Now, you marry that with a high deductible insurance plan, and it could save you and your family a lot of money over the course of a year. At Grace Point, they take their time with each patient. They see you the same or next day. There are no long wait times or crowded wait rooms. They treat naturally whenever possible, and it is a military vet-owned practice. Just some of the reasons why it's been voted the best primary care provider by Toast of Music City year after year after year. By the way, they have COVID testing and treatment, so you can get over that COVID. It's not like the old COVID. It's not the same thing, and you can get the treatments that will get you over it quickly. Why don't you go to Grace Point Healthcare on Main Street in Franklin, 599-6868 to schedule a visit. It is 5:39 on Super Talk. I'm Brian Wilson, and this is The Drive for Thursday, October 26th. I've been talking for a while about how it seems that a lot of people are less than enamored with their EV experiences, their electric vehicle experiences. A lot of people, I mean, I will tell you this right off the bat. As soon as I say that, I'll get 5 emails from people who love their electric cars. They think they're the greatest thing since sliced bread. I mean, they just adore them. But, I mean, they're not selling very well. So much so that Ford and GM have both come in recent days and said they're going to start rethinking their movement toward a total EV fleet. I mean, there was a time when they said, no, it's just a matter of years. You know, we're going to have all electric vehicles. We're not going to have any internal combustion engines. And now they seem to be backing away from that. And, you know, it sounds as if what the main problem is that they can't sell them. And by the way, right now, they lose money on every electric vehicle they make. They lose big-time money. If it weren't for all of the tax breaks they get and the tax breaks that people get when they buy them, you couldn't afford one, and they're pretty expensive as they are. Now comes word that Hertz, the number one car rental company in the country, I believe I'm correct in saying, is now pumping the brakes on plans to electrify more of its rental car fleet, citing two things: high repair costs when they're damaged or when they need repair, and the fact that Tesla, most of their electric fleet, their Tesla vehicles, just cut the price on Tesla cars. Well, they bought them at a higher price, and you know what? The way these car rental companies operate is they buy them, they get a good deal because they're buying in bulk, they get a good price on the car, they rent them out to you for a while, and when they reach, I don't know, I think it's roughly around 30,000 miles, then they retire them and you sell them as used cars. But if you can get a new Tesla for the cost of a used one, then you're not going to be able to sell those cars the way you would have otherwise. So it's two things that Tesla cut their prices, but the other part of it was that when they have to go to the shop, it's expensive to fix them. They're supposed to be lower maintenance because they don't have as many moving parts. They're easier to assemble, I'm told, but I mean, still, Ford, Chevy now thinking about pulling back on making as many truly EV cars, might go back to working on the hybrids in a bigger way. And Hertz now pulling back on plans to add more EV cars to their lineup. The rental car company reported lower than expected margins for the period of September ending September 23, and they said that EVs were part of the problem. Our direct operating expenses remained controlled in the quarter as they grew with transactional volume. Blah, 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 blah. Hertz disclosed that about 80% of its battery electric cars and its fleets are Teslas today. And 11% of Hertz's entire fleet is comprised of electric cars. That means that there are about 35,000 Teslas in the fleet now. It's far shy of the 100,000 Tesla electric cars Hertz originally said it was ordering by the end of 2022. Hertz says they're still committed to buying 100,000 cars, but not on target to have EVs represent a quarter of its fleet by the end of 2024, as previously hoped. I think that I don't think they're going to be making as many of these electric cars as they once thought they were going to. It makes me wonder, again, I asked this question, and nobody has gotten back to me with an answer on this. Are they changing the plans down at Blue Oval City? Because that was supposed to be a plant that was designed to build electric cars. But you hear Ford is changing its mind about electric cars. You hear that GM is changing its mind about electric cars. I don't know about Stellantis, but I mean, there that is. Is it something that changes their vision for Blue Oval City? I ask only because we gave them millions and millions and millions and millions and millions of state tax dollars to build that plant down there on the idea that they were going to be building a big plant that would be doing well and bring revenue to the state for years to come. I don't know. Are we still on track for all of that? Has anybody asked? Just asking. UAW Ford deal, they have a tentative deal. GM and Stellantis still doesn't have a deal, but the agreement with Ford would give workers a 25% raise over the course of the contract, puts pressure on GM and Stellantis to come up with something that's similar. If approved, and I think it will be approved, the deal will raise workers' wages by 25% over the life of a 4.5-year contract, boosting top pay to $40 an hour. Currently, assembly line workers max out at $32 an hour. Members would receive 11% of the increase upon ratification. Temporary workers will see significant raises of more than 150% over the life of the contract. While union officials didn't disclose exact figures, Wednesday Ford had previously offered these workers would start at about $21 an hour, jump to around a jump from around 17, but eventually end up at around $40 an hour. Who prevailed, Ford or the UAW? This story in the Wall Street Journal says the UAW scored one of its biggest bargaining victories in decades, winning an extremely lucrative deal from its Ford workers after weeks of company executives saying they need to keep labor costs in check to remain competitive. On wages, Ford had originally offered a 9% increase over 4 years versus the union's 40% demand, and hoped to hold off on other items such as the return of cost of living raises. How much will it cost Ford? Ford Executive Chair Bill Ford said last week the union's demands could hurt the company's competitiveness and curb future U.S. factory investment. Again, I asked the question, has anybody checked in? Governor, have you checked in with Ford lately to find out what their plans are? I'm seeing a lot of signals here that make me think it's not the deal that we thought it was going to be. I don't know. I'm not smart enough to figure that out, but I'm sure there's somebody that should be asking that question. New home sales went up by 12%. That's a good sign, actually, because home sales had really been dragging. Sales of U.S. single-family homes surged to a 19-month high in September as builders offered price discounts and other incentives to woo buyers, but mortgage rates are approaching 8%, and that could curb demand going forward. We are at almost 8% on interest rates. New home sales rebounded 12.3% to a seasonally adjusted annual rate of 759,000 units last month, the highest level since February of 2022. That's a bit of good news, but again, I think I wouldn't get too excited given that the higher these interest rates go, and they could go higher, the more difficult it is for people to afford new homes. And, of course, you heard it earlier on the program during our market report. The GDP grew at 4.9% annual pace in the third quarter, better than expected. Gross domestic product, GDP, is a measure of all goods and services produced in the U.S. It rose at a seasonally adjusted 4.9% annualized pace in the July through September period, up from an unrevised 2.1% pace in the second quarter. Economists surveyed Dow Jones have been looking for 4.7, which is adjusted for inflation. You say, well, that's good news. Gross domestic product is up. That's good news. No, it's bad. It sounds like good news, but it's not good news because it shows that the economy is still superheated a bit. And what is the one thing that comes with a superheated economy? Inflation. How do you kill inflation? By raising interest rates, which kills the economy in a whole different way. And it's the weirdest thing about, this the way economics work and the way the market looks at things is that, really, really good news about how the economy is performing is seen as a bad thing because it brings with it inflation, and that means higher interest rates. And higher interest rates means that the economy, will get killed off a little bit. You have to hurt the economy to make it better. Sort of like some of the treatments I've undergone through the past summer. You got to take these ugly treatments to make things better. Well, that's the way it goes. 50 minutes now past the hour, 5 o'clock. It's one of the hardest things that we see as we grow into adulthood. It's our parents and our elderly loved ones and the family getting to an age where they start to struggle with their day-to-day lives. Remind us that they're approaching an age where they will need more and more help every day. And this is where assisted family care could help. They can connect you with a responsible, compassionate, compatible helper to assist you with your loved one's daily needs. And if your loved one is a veteran or a spouse or a widow of a veteran, they could very well qualify for a little-known benefit that helps cover these kinds of expenses. Assisted Family Care has years of experience in helping those in Middle Tennessee actually receive the kind of benefits that they are eligible for. You see, many veterans are eligible to receive up to 20 hours of daily living assistance each week at no cost to them. Not everyone is eligible, but if you're a veteran with wartime service, you could qualify for the benefit for yourself or for your spouse. The application process daunting and confusing. Call Assisted Family Care in Nashville. They have years of experience in cutting through the red tape to help veterans receive the benefit if they are eligible. That's right. Assisted Family Care can help you cut through the red tape. Assisted Family Care will be there for you. Visit assistedfamilycare.com or call this number, 615-833-9725.
A Roth IRA versus a traditional IRA. Which one should we do? A lot of people struggle over this particular decision. And I'll just give you a couple tools to figure out what might be better for you. Think about it this way. Let's say if I had $1,000 that I was thinking about investing, that was income, $1,000 of income. With an IRA, let's say that you're in a 30% tax bracket. Let's say there is such a thing. And you want to put this money in an IRA. You're going to save $300 in taxes. Now, if you go post-tax with like a Roth IRA, this is how much goes into the Roth IRA. Now, let's say that later on down the road, we have this money and it didn't grow at all, just to keep the math really simple. And let's say that at some point in the future, you're in a lower tax bracket, because the way our tax system works is that your first income is taxed at a really low rate, and then you get up into higher rates, 10%, 12%, 22%, and so on and so forth. It gets higher. If you're earning income and you're at that particular tax rate up there, you might want to avoid that tax rate right now and take the income at a later point in time when you're in a lower average tax rate. Now let's say that you're in a 10% bracket down here when you pull the money. How much are you going to pay in taxes? 10% of $1,000 is $100. How much do you get to spend? $900. Well, even though I didn't have growth, I had growth because of the difference between my tax rate here and here. And that's the idea. That's one of the things that we look at. We look at Social Security taxation, income taxation, and a lot of factors that might drive you into higher or lower brackets in the future. If you want to learn more about our approach to investing and financial planning, go to paulwinkler.com and set up a free 15-minute phone call or call 615-851-1950.
An update on the manhunt for the suspect in the Maine mass shooting that left 18 people dead so far. A delayed ground offensive from Israel and drugs in Tennessee. Those stories and more at 6 o'clock right here. Super Talk 99.7 WTN.
Did you know that it's Bat Week? Bat Week. That's right. It runs from the 20. I know. I'm sorry. From the 24th through October 31st. To take advantage of Halloween and bats.
All right.
Yeah,
love it.
But apparently we have 4 species of endangered bats in Tennessee. I did not know this. The gray bat, the Indiana bat. Indiana doesn't want them. Long-eared bat. And the Virginia big-eared bat.
Long-eared bat and the big-eared bat.
Yeah.
Right.
There's a lot of different bats.
Bats are actually very cute.
Yeah, they are.
If you look at them.
Except for those big ones. Have you seen the ones that grow down in South America?
Yeah.
They look like small people.
I kind of like those, though. They're
those
friendly.
Are creepy.
Yeah,
Creepy.
They eat fruit and bugs. Come on.
It's 56 minutes now past the hour of 5 o'clock. Listen, I know I'll tell you something that'll drive you bat guano crazy, and that is when your air conditioning goes out or your heater goes out. And if that happens, you need to just reach out and call the folks over at Busy Bee HVAC and Plumbing. They can get over to your house very quickly and get you up and running. And right now, I mean, you will be using both sides of your HVAC, the part that cools and the part that heats, right? And so if any side goes down, just give them a call. The way you avoid problems really is to do preventative maintenance, and that's what the Beehive Club is really all about. Starts at $99, and what happens is throughout the year you get 3 maintenance services on your systems, one aimed at heating, one aimed at cooling, one aimed at plumbing. No overtime charges 24/7, 10% off all repairs. Busy Bee Plumbing, Heating, and Cooling is your official Rude Pro partner. And I tell you what, I've been doing business with this company, and I find their work to be exemplary. I think you'll be well pleased. For satisfaction guaranteed, call Busy Bee Plumbing, Heating, and Cooling, 775-7833. That's 615-775-7833, or online at busybeehvac.com.
It is 6 o'clock. I'm Mac Maury with your top stories right now. 78 degrees and a sunny day on Music Row. And we've got some rainy days ahead. Tomorrow should stay mostly clear. Latest forecast and a traffic report on the way in 5 minutes. The death toll in Maine is 18 with 13 injured in last night's mass shooting. Authorities still searching for the man they say that did it, 40-year-old Robert Card, a firearms instructor with military history. Here's Michelle Franzen with the latest.
More witnesses are coming forward after the deadly mass shooting in Lewiston, Maine. A mother who was at the bowling alley, one of the shooting scenes, says she saw the gunman.
I saw him standing there at the front door. He was fumbling with, I'm assuming, his magazine or something. And that's about the time when I saw somebody go down.
ABC News has learned that the family of the suspected gunman has been cooperating with law enforcement. ABC's Aaron Katursky.
When his sister first heard about the shooting, the location at the bowling alley, and her brother's alleged involvement, the sister told law enforcement she thought he might be targeting an ex-girlfriend. Whether she works at that bowling alley or may have just bowled there, we don't know. But that's what the sister initially believed.
Katursky says they found Robert Card's car at a boat launch in Lisbon, Maine.
And that was Chuck Sievertson reporting. We also know that he spent almost 2 weeks over the summer in a mental health facility, and that Card reported hearing voices inside of his head, and that he had threatened to shoot up a National Guard base in Maine. He has apparent military ties there. The war between Israel and Hamas. Israel says it's carried out a significant raid overnight, sending tanks and troops into the northern Gaza Strip. The IDF says they killed militants and, quote, terror infrastructure during several hours and then returned to Israeli territory. We may see more of these raids as Israel delays its massive ground offensive. Jordana Miller reports from Jerusalem.
Israel holding off on its ground offensive in the Gaza Strip, with top officials here now referring to it as, quote, the next stage of the war. Sources telling ABC News several factors behind the delay, chief among them, efforts to secure the release of 224 hostages taken by the terror group Hamas, among them at least 9 Americans. Waiting before going into Gaza, also giving Israel and the U.S. more time to prepare for all military options.
And that death total now reportedly over 6,500. And that is the latest news. Traffic and weather next. I'm Mac Morey, WTN News.
Hey, everyone. It's Brian Wilson, and this is The Drive. 7 minutes now past the hour of 6 o'clock. Good evening. I hope you're doing well. Hope your day has gone well. Sounds like a good night to go out for Mexican food. That's what I'm going to do.
That's any night, really, isn't it?
Yeah. Well, have some anchis and some margis.
Yeah. Maybe not.
I've been doing that for years. You know where that came from? I had my first wife was a home economist and a great cook, and she made homemade enchiladas that were really spectacular.
Okay.
And then so she knew that she worked as a home economist for the she was like a home economist for the county. She was a county agent.
Okay.
And I was, what was that guy, the county agent in Green Acres? Mr. Kimball.
Oh.
I was married to a Mrs. Kimball. Anyway, so she would always make an extra batch to take to work the next day. And she had a secretary who would always, we're going to have some inchies today. And so I started calling them inchies. We're having inchies. And then you go out and, have that marquee with your inchie. And that's where that all came from.
What if that lady was listening right now?
Well,
he's making fun of me.
I guarantee you, she's not around anymore. She's
Oh.
and that was way back in Amarillo. So our signal is good, but I don't think it's that good.
Well, she could be listening online.
She could be listening online. That's right. No, that was a long time ago. But I do that all the time, and you know what? Everybody universally hates it. I don't know why I continue.
It's very uncomfortable sounding. Yeah.
All right, I won't do it again.
Please
I promise.
don't.
It's inch.
Yeah, I knew you were going to do it again.
Well, let's see. What do we want to talk about here in the last hour? I guess I want to bring you up to speed on what's going on in the Mideast right now. We have not yet seen the ground incursion, and it appears from all accounts that this is because the Biden administration is asking Israel not to go in, not just hold on a minute, don't go in. And there's two things they're concerned about. Number one, they're still trying to negotiate for the hostages, and okay, I'm willing to give you that one, right? I think that one makes sense. Maybe there's no way anybody can share intimate details about the hostage negotiations without bringing harm to the negotiations. And I mean, I grant them that one. That, there are some Americans in there, and there are about 203 people that are being held hostage by Hamas. And if you're trying to get those folks out safely before you go in, then, you probably do need a little time. So that one I sort of understand. The second thing that at least the one they're giving out publicly is that the United States has asked Israel to delay because they want to have time to prepare missile defense systems to protect the U.S. forces in the region. I have a list here of all the places that we have U.S. forces. You ready? We have U.S. forces serving in Iraq, in Jordan, in Kuwait, Saudi Arabia, Syria, and United Arab Emirates, according to the Wall Street Journal. And so, they say, well, let's hold on. Let's not, let us get some missile defense systems in there, because the expectation is that the moment that Israel starts to go in a big way into the Gaza Strip, that then there will be a sort of a reaction, and our forces in the region will come under attack from the various militant groups that are supported by Iran. I mean, the Houthis and the Hezbollah and the Hamas and the whole group, they all start with H's. Isn't that interesting? But, I mean, they will then start to attack us. And my question is, this is not new. We've had people in the region before. They've been there for a long time. How is it that we didn't have these kind of systems in place to protect them already? I mean, why didn't you think about this beforehand? Shouldn't they, just by the purpose of them being there, and there's a threat, and they hate us, So why wouldn't you already have those missile defense systems in place? But they've asked for a little time to do that, and apparently the Israelis have decided to allow that to happen while the United States brings in those systems and while the United States, through an intermediary, Qatar, continues to talk about releasing more and more of the hostages. The other side of it is, though, is that we have already been attacked to some degree. We are learning more and more and more about drone attacks against U.S. forces, in which some U.S. forces have been injured. Several had what are called TBIs, which I learned today stands for traumatic brain injury. And I don't know how traumatic it was, but apparently many of those people have returned to duty. But they did have some impact from these drone explosions that were going off in and around our troops. I mean, the physical injuries, no, not so much, but the brain injuries, which come from the concussion of an explosion, they definitely had to deal with some of that. And the president has said, if you attack our forces, we're going to attack you. And that was the question today of the briefing room of John Kirby. Well, how come we haven't seen any action? And Kirby got a little, I don't want, what's the word? Pissy. I was the only word I can come in with the reporter who asked the question.
John, the president said that if Iran or its proxies attacked U.S. troops, that we would respond. So what is he waiting for exactly?
He did say that.
Where's the response?
He said that. And he said that we will.
Repeating the warning is the response?
Jack, come on.
I mean, the question was, is the warning the response? Is that all we're going to do is just warn them but not take any action? And it was then that Kirby got a little attitude about it.
Jack, come on now.
It's not his question.
I'm not going to telegraph punches here from the podium. We have responded and retaliated in the past, quite aggressively, in fact, back in March. And as the president said, we will not hesitate to protect our troops and our facilities, but we're going to do it at a time of our choosing and a manner of our choosing. And the decision to do it, if we do it, is his as commander-in-chief and his alone.
Well, okay, but you said you were going to take action. Do you not know where these missiles are coming from, where these drones are being fired from? Do you not have any idea who's responsible? Sure you do. You know exactly where they're coming from. You could take a response, and you could have a response in the area in a matter of minutes. No, you see, you've made a hollow threat. To people in the Arab world, that's interpreted as weakness. Well, anywhere in the world, if you say you're going to do something and you don't do it, it's considered weak. And he hasn't taken any action. It's all good and fine for America, the most powerful military in the world, to make a threat. But then if you don't follow through, then what good was that threat? Didn't do you a bit of good. And it means that they don't believe anything you say going forward. I think it was a great question. And I think Kirby, although I generally think he's most of the time the adult in the room around there, I think he was wrong to criticize the question. It's a fair question. I mean, what we have here is on the world stage, we have a president who is viewed as incredibly weak, feeble, doddering, a man in cognitive decline, who can't find his way on and off a stage in any public outing that he has. I mean, have you seen him ever at the end of a thing? He just always looks around like, where am I supposed to go? Would somebody leave Granddad and point him in the right direction? and they and this only reinforces that belief that we have a feckless, ineffective, incredibly weak leader of the free world. That's why everybody is so emboldened. That's why Hamas thought they could get away with this. That's why, it all started back in Afghanistan when we tried to withdraw and it went so badly. And U.S. citizens lost their lives. U.S. military operators lost their lives as a result of the horrible Very bad judgment of a president who thought he knew more than the commanders who do this for a living knew. If the United States can be pushed around by, the Taliban, then, everybody else in the world, that's the clear sign they need that we can go do what we want to do, and we don't have to worry about the mighty United States because there's nobody in charge over there. Think about how the world has deteriorated since that man took the oath of office. It started with Afghanistan. The next thing was, the Russians said, well, if the Taliban can push him around and nothing happens, I think we'll just run into Ukraine and start a war. The Chinese emboldened to act badly. I mean, they are acting very badly in the South China Sea with regards to Taiwan. I mean, they run daily drills, run up right up to the edge of Taiwan on almost a daily basis. And you don't know, is this it or is this not it? We do nothing. We do nothing to stop it. It happens every day. And because the Chinese don't fear us, they don't respect us. The Russians don't fear us, they don't respect us. Hamas did not fear us. Iran does not fear us. North Korea does not fear us. They don't have any respect. And it's hard to respect the United States when the face of our government is a president who doesn't seem to know that today is Thursday. Now, there are about 600 United States citizens, U.S. citizens, who were in Gaza and who are trying desperately to get out, and they can't get out. And here is Matt Miller from the State Department. Here is his explanation as to why Americans can't get out of Gaza and into Egypt, where they can then find passage to the United States.
If you've ever been to Rafah Crossing, or if you know what it looks like, there is an Egyptian side that is controlled by Egyptian immigration authorities, and then there is a Gaza side that has been controlled by immigration authorities from Hamas. And in the middle, there is a no man's land. And so the Egyptian authorities are ready to process American citizens and other foreign nationals if they make it through the Gaza side of the border, through the no man's land to them. But the problem has been up until now, and it's the problem that we've been trying to unlock, is that at times on the Gaza side of the border, there has been no one there from Hamas to open the gates and process people and let them through. And at other times, there have been actually armed Hamas militants standing there, not even letting people approach the gate.
Okay. Look, find the times when the Hamas people are not there and walk in with a pair of bolt cutters, would you please? I haven't been to the Rafah gate. I've been to the Aries gate, which is very similar. There is a no man land. It's about, 100 yards, about a football field. You go through one set of security barriers, and you meet with Israeli officials going in, and then you go about 100 yards and you come across Palestinian officials who then look at all your documents and let you in. Same thing on the Egyptian side, in reverse. Just get some bolt cutters, man. Let some Americans come home. Show some initiative. Show some gumption. Get it done. 20 minutes now past the hour of 6 o'clock on Super Talk. Have you ever noticed how unreliable things have become many times today? Like, someone tells you, hey, I've got this thing that you want me to work on. It'll be ready at 4 p.m. And then you get there and it's not. People are really tired of that kind of stuff. And if you've had it with unreliable vehicle repair shops, why don't you come to Eurofix? Eurofix turns unreliable into reliable, and Eurofix will have your vehicle ready when it's supposed to be ready, so you're not standing around and waiting. Eurofix repairs all European cars with a quality that beats the dealer without dealer pricing. You know why? That's because dealers' repair shops are designed to pay virtually all of a dealership's overhead, and that's a lot of money. I mean, why would you want to pay for that? At Eurofix, reliable means a 3-year nationwide warranty, plus a free loaner car with every repair appointment. Make sure you call ahead, as loaner cars are very popular. If you're tired of unreliable repair shops, come to where it is reliable. Eurofix, family-owned for 24 years. Call 844-EUROFIX or visit myEurofix.com. That's myEurofix.com.
Hey everybody, Dan Mattis with Nashville's Morning News on WTN. I'm here at the Nashville Rescue Mission doing the interviews that I look forward to doing every single year. These are incredible stories of people who have had amazing recoveries. Thanks to this amazing facility, they are able to get clean and lead a more productive life. The date of our annual radiothon is going to be Monday, November 20th. Listen in and please donate. You can get more information at 99.7 WTN, including a link to the website for Nashville's Rescue Mission.
Well, they're still looking for that guy in Maine who killed 18 people in a horrible rampage that started last night, just about the time this program was coming to a close. And the death tolls have reached, well, the latest number is 18.
The victims at the just-in-time establishment, 7 people are deceased there, 1 female and 6 males, all from an apparent gunshot wound. Victims at the Schmegli's Billiards, 8 are deceased. 7 males inside the establishment, 1 male outside of the establishment.
So that accounts for 15. The remainder died at the hospital after they were transported. A very serious and sad situation. The community reeling from all of this. And, you know, it's sad that this has happened, but there are 2 things about this that seem to be, you know, pretty common in these kinds of events. One is that, you know, that this person, everybody sort of knew this person was whack, was just completely nuts, was hearing voices, seemed to think that people were talking about him behind his back, which is paranoia. And he even was committed to a to a mental facility for a couple of weeks, and he was an Army reservist, and they were so concerned about him, they had him carried over to the military hospital for analysis. I mean, everybody knew this guy was dangerous and knew and had a lot of weapons, and nobody seemed to think that they should do anything about that. The other thing that is predictable, just as sure as the sun comes up in the east and sets in the west, is that Democrats, even before the police tape has been removed, will start calling for new gun laws.
In our country today, the leading cause of death of American children is gun violence. Gun violence has terrorized and traumatized so many of our communities in this country. And let us be clear, it does not have to be this way.
Well, yeah, it doesn't if you actually enforce the laws that you have on the books. There is a yellow, what they call a yellow flag or a yellow page law in Maine that says that family members can raise the flag and have weapons removed. Family members didn't take that action. Family members were absolutely clear about how bonkers this guy was, and they didn't take any action. But that doesn't stop the Democrats. First thing they want to do.
Let's work together to ban assault weapons and high-capacity magazines. Let's work together to enact universal background checks, require safe storage of guns, and keep guns out of the hands of criminals and dangerous individuals who have no business being armed with a weapon of war. The House has a new speaker who he said he's ready to get to work and to find common ground. Now is the time.
CNN rushed in with their cameras to ask people on the street there in Lewiston, Maine, what do you want to see happen? And they think they assumed that people would say, we need to crack down on these guns. We need gun laws. That's exactly what they're expecting. You know what they got? One guy said, man, in situations like this, I wish I had a firearm. And we're reminded, in situations like this, when something is going on, you need to remember that when seconds count, the police are minutes away. And some of this could have been stopped if there'd been one good guy with a gun. But no, the Democrats would rather have the issue than actually try to do something like enforce the laws that are already on the books in democratically controlled Maine. 30 minutes now past the hour. It is 36 minutes past the hour of 6 o'clock on Super Talk. Brian Wilson in the chair for a few more minutes until we hand it over to Mark Levin, the great one, who will carry on throughout the rest of the evening. And he's dialed up, man. He's got things to say. There's an old saying. It's a sort of an inside industry joke that if you're in talk radio and you're looking around for a good topic to get people agitated or to fired up and to find out where strong opinions about, start talking about marijuana. And I can tell you, if I were to open the phone lines right now, I could fill up those phone lines, but I'm not going to do that right now. I just want to read you a story. It's a 14-page story from the Wall Street Journal. And here's the headline. And I'm gonna just read some of this stuff for your thoughtful consideration. All right. Here's the headline. The cannabis that people are using for anxiety is probably making it worse. Anxious consumers are looking for help, and pot companies have promoted their product as the answer. But does it really help with anxiety, or does it cause more anxiety? Well, let's get into that. Cannabis companies have promoted their products as helpful for anxiety, making for a potentially lucrative market. Weed and edibles for relief as treatments for their ailments have become harder to find. The number of available and affordable therapists badly lags demand, and traditional medications don't work for everyone. Both users and businesses hopes is a belief that pot can make us feel less anxious. Yet little independent scientific evidence shows that cannabis is an effective treatment for anxiety problems, and some studies have found it can worsen the symptoms. Researchers say this is particularly true for products high in THC, which of course is the substance responsible for marijuana's intoxicating effects. A survey last year found that nearly 2/3 of people said that they would prefer to use cannabis rather than pharmaceuticals to treat medical issues, according to the survey conducted by the Harris Poll on behalf of cannabis company Curaleaf of almost 2,000 adults who were at least 21 years old. And among 54% of the respondents who said they'd ever used cannabis, 41% of them said they consumed cannabis to reduce anxiety. Dr. Beth Salcedo, a psychiatrist, says, I have patients who use it every day. They say it really helps. My message is, if this was really working for you, you wouldn't be here with me. Because, if you're here with me now, you've got anxiety that is not being resolved with the marijuana. When Salcedo talks with patients about what their anxiety was like before the cannabis, she says they usually report that the anxiety is unchanged. Any transient relief they feel may be due in part to marijuana's high. Cannabis companies are promoting the idea that products can help anxiety, but it's not regulated, so they can make any claim that they want to make, and there's nobody to hold them accountable because it's not a regulated substance. Cannabis revenue was expected to reach $30 billion a year by now, according to estimates from Harvard University economist Jeffrey Myron. Is it to replace alcohol, pain for cancer patients, sleep, anxiety? He believes that this guy, Irwin Simon, who sells a product, says he believes it can be used for all of the above. And they go on to talk about, how a little vape here, a little gummy at night, I guarantee you it's going to change your life a lot. And he believes in the efficacy of medical cannabis when prescribed by medical professionals and used properly. Anxiety is an important therapeutic indication for medical cannabis as a standalone disease. So there are those out there who make the case that it works. Busy Phillips, the actor, author, and influencer, described using marijuana for her panic attacks and live-streamed events that was sponsored by Curaleaf. I immediately felt better, but present and myself. But like the anxiety attack, the edge had been taken off. I was calm. I don't feel messed up or anything. I could still hang with my children and still be a mom and still make mac and cheese. Curaleaf said Phillips wasn't paid for her appearance, though publicist declined to comment about that. Well, let me move over a little bit in this, because I say this goes about 14 pages. There's a lot to absorb here. And if you want more on it, you should go to the Wall Street Journal and actually download the story. Let's get to the part here on page 8 where it talks about the science. 2 recent studies show the potential problem with treating anxiety with cannabis. Cannabis was significantly associated with increased odds of developing anxiety conditions, according to a review of research published in 2020 in the Canadian Journal of Psychiatry. All right, it's the Canadians, okay? They know a thing or two about marijuana. I think it's legal up there, isn't it? Yeah. Recent cannabis use was associated with more severe symptoms in people with anxiety and mood disorders, according to another review published in 2018 in the Journal of Clinical Psychiatry. Now, the industry has counter surveys and counter studies that have been done. One study published in 22, researchers affiliated with Harvest Medicine, a chain of cannabis clinics, and a telehealth service in Canada found that people using medical cannabis for anxiety saw significant improvement on the measure of anxiety. In some surveys, cannabis users have reported they have felt relief from anxiety symptoms. There is some evidence, this is, I think most people agree on this, that CBD, which is a non-intoxicating substance derived from cannabis, may relieve anxiety symptoms, but the science on that is limited. The complexity of the cannabis plant, and while many cannabis products are available, making it difficult to study and determine how to best use it therapeutically. The composition of products can vary from batch to batch. Products have different effects on people depending on their age, usage, and other factors. When you go to the pharmacy, the Prozac you get is just going to be like the Prozac you got last month. There's a great deal of very controlled research to provide a roadmap how to use it. With cannabis, you don't have that. Every batch can be different. Every batch can have a different reaction, depending on the kind of cannabis, I guess, that you purchase. The most evidence-based non-drug treatment for anxiety disorders, cognitive behavioral therapy, involves approaching the situations that make you anxious and learning how to tolerate the uncomfortable feelings. Hard work. You know, it is hard work. Being high can get in the way of that, say some scientists. All right, so are there risks? Yes, I think we can all agree there is a risk to using cannabis regularly. Not everybody agrees on that point, but most of the scientists believe there's a significant risk that you can become addicted. Among people who reported using marijuana in the past year, about 30% have cannabis use disorder. According to an analysis of federal data, marijuana can become a disorder when people need to use an increasing amount to get the same impact when the use interferes with work and relationships, among other symptoms. And it tells this story. Jordan Davidson, age 22, diagnosed with generalized anxiety disorder as a kid growing up in Connecticut. In high school, he started using high-potency THC products, which at first he said made him have fewer anxious thoughts. But soon, when he didn't have the marijuana, he felt like his skin was crawling. He couldn't sleep. Immediately, he decided to get help and hasn't used cannabis since 2018. He joined a group dedicated to convincing lawmakers in Washington that the substance can be dangerous. I feel like I was duped into believing it's not addictive. It's just a plant. It will cure your anxiety. He said, we were being played by, I guess, big cannabis. Is there such a thing as big cannabis? I think there is, probably. Look, I know people, have really strong opinions about this, and I have never smoked a joint in my life, so I come to this as somebody from the outside. But I will tell you an experience that I had recently that sort of made me stop and say, I'm not sure that my positions were correct, and that was that I, as you know, in the past summer, came up with a really bad case of shingles. Now, if you've never had shingles, and by the way, if you watch on Super Talk TV, you notice I sometimes rub my shoulder. I still have the after effects of that. It still hurts, but not like it did when I was in the throes in the early days of shingles. It is a pain unlike any other I had ever experienced. And I've been run over by a truck. So, I know a little bit about pain. And so, I was going to the doctors, and the doctors don't like to give you pain medicine, or they give you a little bit of pain medicine that lasts you for a few days. But the shingles wasn't going away, and the pain was still there, and I would run out of medicine, and they didn't want to refill. And so I literally could not sleep at night, and I because the pain was so overbearing. And I looked around, so I tried stuff across the counter. I tried to, get stuff that I thought might help. Nothing was helping. And it was just, I was circling the drain there for a while. I mean, I was really in bad shape. And Chris, back me up on this, because you know that I came to work many days under a great deal of pain. You witnessed it firsthand by watching.
Yeah, I could tell it was rough for quite a while.
Yeah, it was pretty rough. And so, out of desperation, somebody said, "Have you tried any CBD gummies?" And I did. And I slept like a baby the first night that I took one. And it helped. So it helped with my pain. I'm not a particularly anxious person, so that really wasn't the issue. But I did take them for a while. And now these are legal. I didn't do anything. I didn't buy anything off the black market. I bought stuff that's legal. You can go down and buy it too. And I just tried it to see if it would have an impact. And I got to tell you, it got me through some rough days. And more importantly, some very rough nights where I could finally just relax enough where I could go to sleep. And I don't know, honestly, to this day, I don't know if I would have made it if it had not been for that. So, I have stopped and been doing some rethinking about whether or not there are some therapeutic, benefits, because basically the CBD is a byproduct. It doesn't have the THC in it, but it does have some pain relieving properties. And so I no longer take them. As soon as I got to the point where the pain subsided and the healing had gotten far enough along that while I'm still in a little bit of pain, not as near as much pain as I once was, I quit taking it. And I don't think that I need it now. And my general feeling about all medicines is, if I don't need it, I want to have the least amount of medicine in my body as possible, and as long as I can function without it. So, that was my experience. And I walked away as somebody who was viscerally against these kinds of things, into somebody who said, well, I don't know, maybe there's something to it. I do also know of cases, though, where I have witnessed personally people who developed anxiety and became very sort of neurotic. And as soon as they stopped and weaned themselves off of regular marijuana use, those things went away. So I think it's a complex question. And as long as it's unregulated, we're really not going to know, there's not going to be the kind of research that needs to be done to find out what the truth is and to bring some consistency to a product on the market. So let's just say that my opinion about this is evolving. I'm not quite as hard against it as I once was. 50 minutes now past the hour.
A Roth IRA versus a traditional IRA. Which one should we do? A lot of people struggle over this particular decision. And I'll just give you a couple tools to figure out what might be better for you. Think about it this way. Let's say if I had $1,000 that I was thinking about investing, that was income, $1,000 of income. With an IRA, let's say that you're in a 30% tax bracket. Let's say there is such a thing. And you want to put this money in an IRA. You're going to save $300 in taxes. Now, if you go post-tax with like a Roth IRA, this is how much goes into the Roth IRA. Now, let's say that later on down the road, we have this money and it didn't grow at all, just to keep the math really simple. And let's say that at some point in the future, you're in a lower tax bracket, because the way our tax system works is that your first income is taxed at a really low rate, and then you get up into higher rates, 10%, 12%, 22%, and so on and so forth. It gets higher. If you're earning income and you're at that particular tax rate up there, you might want to avoid that tax rate right now and take the income at a later point in time when you're in a lower average tax rate. Now let's say that you're in a 10% bracket down here when you pull the money. How much are you going to pay in taxes? 10% of $1,000 is $100. How much do you get to spend? $900. Well, even though I didn't have growth, I had growth because of the difference between my tax rate here and here. And that's the idea. That's one of the things that we look at. We look at Social Security taxation, income taxation, and a lot of factors that might drive you in a higher or lower brackets in the future. If you want to learn more about our approach to investing and financial planning, go to paulwinkler.com and set up a free 15-minute phone call or call 615-851-1950.